Chapter 2035. It'd be impossible to escape. Among the great emperors in eternal chaotic world, excluding Supreme Emperor Bai, there was a distance between the great emperors, although it wasn't too great. For example, the strongest Red Dragon King and Abysmal Saint Master, they were only stronger than the ordinary great emperors by a slight bit. However, when they fought one-on-one, it would be impossible for the two of them to kill the weakest great emperor. However, the great emperors in Three Emperors world were obviously stronger than the great emperors in Eternal Chaotic world. They were above the standard of a top great emperor. For example, the beast-like bald man, Ling Zong, was much stronger than Red Dragon King and Abysmal Saint Master. Then, the tall and sturdy man who was charging at Great Emperor Ji Luo was also not any weaker in fighting power than Ling Zong. Outsider die. The tall and sturdy middle-aged man glanced at Great Emperor Ji Luo. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Virum. A terrifying aura engulfed Great Emperor Ji Luo. As the tall and sturdy middle-aged man plunged over, Great Emperor Ji Luo felt a sense of crisis. Without hesitation, her figure turned illusionary. She had no intention of fighting the tall and sturdy middle-aged man head-on. Then she appeared in the void where the spacetime gap was. As she slapped, the originally small spacetime gap instantly expanded and transformed into a spacetime tunnel. The spacetime tunnel was enough for one person to fly through. However, Great Emperor Ji Luo had merely expanded the spacetime tunnel and she had yet to leap into it. The tall and sturdy middle-aged man appeared from nowhere again. Then, his palm began magnifying continuously like a huge star that was charging at Great Emperor Ji Luo. Emperor Ji Luo was shocked and she quickly raised her hand to block. In the end, she fell in the direction of the huge palm. Humph. Do you want to escape via this spacetime tunnel? The tall and sturdy middle-aged man smirked coldly. Then he waved and a billowing spacetime power swept out. The spacetime tunnel, which was big enough for a person to fly through, began to resume. *T. Great Emperor Ji Luo's face changed. She had been through hardship and she had even used the one-time use ancient treasure that she had obtained from the ancient battlefield to make a spacetime tunnel. It was also the only route of return for the four members' experts troops. However, the tall and sturdy middle-aged man was obviously not any weaker in the manipulation of spacetime power compared to her. Go away. Great Emperor Ji Luo's aura soared and her divine power increased tremendously. She held a spear in each of her hands. As she wielded them, she brought about terrifying power and stabbed. The spears were aiming at the void in front of her. However, they came before the tall and sturdy man via spacetime power. The man had no choice but to retreat. Great Emperor Ji Luo's figure became illusionary. She didn't retreat and instead advanced to fight the tall and sturdy man head-on instead. At the same time she let out a shrill scream, "Abysmal Saint Master Emperor Jiao, hurry up and leave. Leave now." Her roar reverberated in the universe. Great Emperor Ji Luo tried her best to keep the tall and sturdy man occupied. Then, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiao happened to rush to the scene. They noticed the spacetime tunnel that was returning to its original size. The spacetime tunnel had already shrunk in size tremendously and it only needed a short while until it disappeared entirely. Ji Luo. Abysmal Saint Master clenched his hands. Emperor Jiao by his side also looked pale with rage. They knew clearly that Great Emperor Ji Luo was trying her best to keep the tall and sturdy middle-aged man occupied while Jianghu was fighting ferociously against the 12 great emperors. He wouldn't be able to rush there before the spacetime tunnel disappeared entirely. Then there was only Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiao who would manage to escape in time. Go! Abysmal Saint Master roared and he immediately grabbed Emperor Jiao to throw him into the spacetime tunnel. Then Abysmal Saint Master leaped into the spacetime tunnel too. Just as the spacetime tunnel was going to resume its original size, they got in. In the blink of an eye, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiao's figure left and the spacetime tunnel disappeared completely. *. Two of them escaped. The tall and sturdy middle-aged man who was being kept occupied by Great Emperor Ji Luo grew angry and his power increased tremendously. Bang, bang, bang. There were 3 continuous bangs, then Great Emperor Ji Luo humphed and fell backward. The direction in which she retreated was the direction where Jianghu was. Swoosh, swoosh. Jianghu met with Great Emperor Ji Luo and both of them stood side by side. The figures surrounding them stopped and towered over them. They looked at Jianghu and Great Emperor Ji Luo with shimmering gazes. The aura that they carried was terrifying. There was a total of 12 great emperors that had besieged Jianghu earlier, including Ling Zong. Now there was the tall and sturdy middle-aged man who was compatible with Ling Zong. Hence, there was a total of 13 great emperors. Among the 13 great emperors, they hemmed Jian Wushuang and great emperor Ji Luo in right in the middle. Sword Emperor, I'm afraid the two of us can't escape. Great Emperor Ji Luo looked pale as she glanced at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. He also knew his situation. There was a great formation surrounding Imperial Peak. Great Emperor Ji Luo had been through a lot of trouble to open up a space-time tunnel. However, the space-time tunnel had already disappeared. She wouldn't be able to open it again. In other words, for the two of them it would be impossible to escape. Luckily, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao have escaped. Our 4-member expert troop hasn't been wiped out entirely, Great Emperor Ji Luo laughed, but her laughter was extremely pathetic. Jian Wushuang took another deep breath. At such a crucial moment, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao had to run. Because those who had stayed back were destined to die. There was almost no possibility of struggle. The 4 members of experts' troops naturally should try their best to escape. Then they could save some fighting power for Sanctuary Alliance for Eternal Chaotic World. As Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo talked, the beast-like Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man gathered among the 13 great emperors. What happened? How could you let Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao escape? Ling Zong creased his eyebrows and demanded to know. How dare you say that about me? I have to deal with 3 in Peak Chaotic Realm. Why don't you give it a try and see if you can make all of them stay? On the other hand, there are a total of 12 Peak Chaotic Realm who couldn't kill one person from early stage Chaotic Realm when they fought an all-out battle, the tall and sturdy middle-aged man teased. Ling Zong paused but didn't continue to call him to account. Although 2 escaped, Sword Emperor stayed. Among the 4 of them he was the most important target. As long as we can kill him, we can consider ourselves to have successfully accomplished the task, Ling Zong said. The surrounding people nodded heavily. Chapter 2036 Life and Death Battle. The people in 3 Emperors' world knew detailed information about the 4 of them. Among the 4 of them, the one that they wanted to kill the most was of course Jian Wushuang. He was too monstrous, too glaring, too intimidating. He was already so powerful when he was only in early stage Chaotic Realm. Just how strong would he be when he reached Peak Chaotic Realm? Almost no one could imagine. That was why Jian Wushuang had to die. On the other hand, they didn't care much about the other 3. Sword Emperor. The beast-like bald man Ling Zong spoke, as we are already in this stage, you should reveal your original appearance, right? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He then realized that he was still in the form of a brawny man, Shou, who he was disguised as. His facial muscles quivered and then his figure began to transform too. After a short while he resumed his original appearance. The cultivators who rushed back from Doctrine Propagation Palace were shocked. I see. This is how he really looks. This person had been in disguise from the very beginning. He hid his power and even his character just to blend in at Imperial Peak. His disguise made him perfect. There were countless people who exclaimed in surprise. They also realized that even though Jian Wushuang had removed his disguise, the aura he carried maintained being in early stage Chaotic Realm. In other words, Jian Wushuang's realm was real. He was really in early stage Chaotic Realm. This monster. Lin Qianhao gasped in admiration. Previously he had disdained Jian Wushuang, but now. This person is actually a super expert in disguise. I once invited him to the battlefield to uphold the reputation of the Lim family. The handsome young man next to Lin Qianhao was glad. Luckily he didn't take up the challenge. Otherwise I'd be doomed. Everyone in Imperial Peak was watching the battle. At the same time, many of them found it saddening because they knew no matter how monstrous Jian Wushuang was, he had come to a dead end. Great Emperor Ji Luo, it is impossible for us to escape from the current situation. We have no choice but to fight a life and death battle. Jian Wushuang licked his lips and there was madness in his eyes. There was madness that spread in Great Emperor Ji Luo's beautiful eyes. You go first, Jian Wushuang suddenly said. Huh. Great Emperor Ji Luo looked at Jian Wushuang in shock, but she saw what Jian Wushuang meant by looking into his eyes. I understand. Great Emperor Ji Luo nodded heavily. Then there was a strange power that swept out from the boy at the next moment. The secret skill of Star Place was instantly performed. Come on. Great Emperor Ji Luo bellowed and soared. She charged at the 13 great emperors in front of her. Just as she charged out, Jian Wushuang moved as well. However, he didn't charge forward but in the opposite direction from Great Emperor Ji Luo. At the end of the direction in which he flew, there was the golden whirlpool where the Emperor Supreme Rock was. Die. Great Emperor Ji Luo was fueled with murderous intention. Her 2 spears stabbed out madly. With the assistance of the secret skill of Star Palace, her power instantly increased by tenfold and her speed became extremely fast too. The 2 spears transformed into bolts of lightning that hit the great emperors in front of her. It was obvious that she wanted to hold all the great emperors in front of her back, just like Jian Wushuang, in order to make time for Jian Wushuang. However, the scene simply looked like she was courting death in Ling Zong's and other great emperors' eyes. Such a joke. Do you think you are like a sword emperor who possesses defensive skills that make him almost immortal? Ling Zong roared and slashed with his battle axe. The tall, sturdy middle-aged man and the other great emperors around him took action simultaneously. The intimidating attacks surged at Great Emperor Ji Luo altogether. Although Great Emperor Ji Luo performed the secret skill of Star Palace and increased her fighting power by 10 times, she still couldn't be a match to so many great emperors. Under the attacks, Great Emperor Ji Luo was at a dead end. But suddenly, Virum. There was a sudden burst of boundless soul power. Great Emperor Ji Luo's aura had already increased tremendously with the aid of secret skill of Star Palace, but it continued to increase at a terrifying speed. Instantly, her aura surpassed everyone else's at the scene. Even Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man next to him were obviously weaker than Great Emperor Ji Luo in terms of aura. This is soul ignition? She is really courting death. The great emperors in 3 Emperors' world came back to reality. Although they had said that Great Emperor Ji Luo was courting death, their faces grew grave. When they reached the level of the Great Emperor, it would be easy to suppress or even to injure their opponents. For instance, Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man had strong enough fighting power to injure any ordinary great emperor. It was too difficult to kill a great emperor. A great emperor had already reached the top of the universe. It was extremely difficult for one to reach that level, and they would have an array of skills. A great emperor would have a final card, which was soul ignition. If a peak emperor god were to perform soul ignition, his power would increase by a dozenfold. As for great emperor, although the increment wouldn't be that ridiculous, his power would absolutely reach a higher level. However, the price to pay for soul ignition was death. There was no possibility of survival. Great Emperor Ji Luo knew that she would die for sure. Hence, she performed soul ignition. Great Emperor Ji Luo exploded with a terrifying fighting power. Her 2 spears became even more powerful than before. Then they became 2 death god sickles. The 13 great emperors, only Ling Zong and the middle-aged man could take Great Emperor Ji Luo's spears forcefully. Once the others were hit, they would be severely injured even if they didn't die. Be careful. The woman was fighting like a cornered beast. There was no point in dealing with her just then. Her soul power will burn her to death eventually. We will fight against her then. She'll die then. Keep her occupied. The others, go after Sword Emperor. The 13 great emperors came to a decision very soon. More than half of the great emperors stayed back to deal with Great Emperor Ji Luo, including the tall and sturdy middle-aged man. The remaining few great emperors chased after Jian Wushuang under the lead of Ling Zong. Jian Wushuang's gaze was stern and he stared at the golden whirlpool at the end of his sight. As for everything that had happened behind him, he knew clearly, but he never once turned back to look. He clearly knew what he was supposed to do then. Just as he appeared in the golden whirlpool nearby and leaped into the golden whirlpool, there was a sudden bang from the void behind him. At the same time, Great Emperor Ji Luo's final shrill scream resounded. Sword Emperor, it's your call. Her voice vanished into thin air and her aura was severed entirely. Great Emperor Ji Luo had passed away. Chapter 2037 Hopeless Situation. Sword Emperor, it's your call. Great Emperor Ji Luo's shrill scream resounded in Jian Wushuang's ears and his body quivered. He never once looked back, but the determination in his eyes grew more intense. Swoosh. Jian Wushuang's speed reached a higher limit and he barged into the golden whirlpool at the first instant. Ling Zong and the other few great emperors tried their best with him from behind. However, it was impossible to stop Jian Wushuang before he got close to the Emperor's Supreme Rock. In the end, Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the Emperor's Supreme Rock again. Looking at the Emperor's Supreme Rock in front of him, which was 100 zhang tall, Jian Wushuang instantly clenched his hands. He had wanted to destroy the Emperor's Supreme Rock previously, but Ling Zong managed to stop him in time. Then he had no route of return and he could only fight all out. Break apart. Jian Wushuang sounded hysterical. His divine power burst out in collaboration with his power of ancient tribe bloodline. Then they flowed into Blood Mountain Sword madly. It was as though Blood Mountain Sword could feel Jian Wushuang's madness. It started quivering vigorously and constantly whistled. Jian Wushuang's sword principle exploded entirely. It was still sword principle Shen Luo, and it was the blast rainstorm that focused on power the most, moving like strong wind with the momentum of rainstorm. There was a terrifying sword light that blotted out the sky and the sun, which appeared in the golden whirlpool. It slashed at the huge Emperor Supreme rock directly. *T. Ling Zong and the others who rushed before the Emperor Supreme rock saw the sword light and their faces grew grave. However, they had just gotten there and Jian Wushuang had already stroked out his sword light. They couldn't block it in time and could only watch the terrifying sword light hit the Emperor Supreme rock. Clang. There was an ear-piercing clang and the entire golden whirlpool quivered. However, it resumed tranquility after that. The 100 zhang tall lofty Emperor Supreme rock continued to float in the air quietly. There was no sign of the Emperor Supreme rock's surface as it was hit by Jian Wushuang's sword light, let alone the fact that it wasn't shattered. What? Jian Wushuang looked surprised. He fought with his all and performed a blast rainstorm in sword principle Shen Luo that focused on power the most. In the end, he couldn't even move the Emperor Supreme rock. The Emperor Supreme rock is so sturdy? Haha, Jian Wushuang, do you really think the holy crystal will be easily destroyed? This is such a joke. Forget about yourself. Even if the strongest emperor by an eternal chaotic world came personally, he absolutely couldn't destroy the holy crystal. No one could. Ling Zong laughed hysterically and the other great emperors looked at him with disdain as well. The Emperor Supreme rock could endure such terrifyingly boundless pure energy. Its sturdiness was naturally unbelievable. It was already difficult to destroy a nail-sized Emperor Supreme rock, let alone the Emperor Supreme rock that was 100 zhang tall. It was almost impossible for an expert in this era to do that. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave when he heard Ling Zong's comment. He performed blast rainstorm with his all, but he hadn't managed to leave any mark on the Emperor Supreme rock. Even if he were to perform his strongest trump card, the secret skill of Star Palace, to increase his power by 100 times, he might not have been able to destroy the Emperor Supreme rock. Most importantly, he was able to slash the Emperor Supreme rock as there was no one who had stopped him earlier. But then, Ling Zong and a few other great emperors rushed over and they wouldn't give Jian Wushuang another chance to hit the Emperor Supreme rock. Humph. Even if I can't destroy the Emperor Supreme rock, I will destroy the surrounding formation. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold and the sword intention he carried soared up. He wielded his sword and his sword light was aimed at the golden whirlpool surrounding them. The golden whirlpool connected the Emperor Supreme rock with the dark millstone. If he could destroy it completely, it would be enough to stop the dark millstone. Jian Wushuang's sword intention soared and the others naturally saw through his plan at the first instant. Stop him. Ling Zong roared and transformed into a beast to leap at Jian Wushuang. The other great emperors took action against Jian Wushuang as well. At the same time, the great emperors who had been stopped by Great Emperor Ji Luo outside the Golden Whirlpool earlier rushed over after Great Emperor Ji Luo passed away. They met with Ling Zong and the others. In the end, the 13 great emperors gathered together to besiege Jian Wushuang again. Bang, 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 bang. There were continuous bangs in the Golden Whirlpool. Every bang was followed by a large amount of power and hit the surrounding Golden Whirlpool. Jian Wushuang was in the middle of the Golden Whirlpool after all. When they fought there, the impact that they caused would affect the stability of the Golden Whirlpool. On top of that, Jian Wushuang seized every chance he got to attack the surrounding void with his sword lights. The energy that moved around in the Golden Whirlpool vibrated within. *T. Ling Zong's face grew grave. By then, the great emperors under the lead of the tall and sturdy middle-aged man rushed to the battlefield and met with Ling Zong. Let's take action together. Stop him from attacking the great formation in the Golden Whirlpool, Ling Zong roared. The 13 great emperors took action simultaneously. Even though Jian Wushuang had shockingly powerful defense power that was enough to last the attack of 13 great emperors, he was completely suppressed. He couldn't damage the surrounding great formation or the spacetime. There were many experts that had gathered in the void outside the Golden Whirlpool. They were watching the shocking war in the middle of the Golden Whirlpool attentively. Everyone could tell that Jian Wushuang was cornered in a hopeless situation. He was merely fighting back like a cornered beast. Humph. Although this person has terrifying defense power, his power isn't invincible after all. He has to space to struggle against the 13 leaders from Imperial Cabinet. It seems that he was only stronger in terms of taking hits. No matter how great his defense power is, he will reach his limit under constant besiegement. At that time he can only meet a dead end. He's dead. He will let the 13 leaders hem him in for so long. He should be proud even if he dies. The cultivators sighed. No one thought Jian Wushuang would survive at the current stage. He was mostly fighting back like a cornered beast. However, no one noticed that Jian Wushuang's eyes were extremely cold, even though he behaved rather crazily. At the situation that looked hopeless, Jian Wushuang was even calmer, his thoughts were even more organized, and he was even clearer in judgment. He'll play a bet. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and there was determination in them. Chapter 2038 Finally dead. As Jian Wushuang was besieged by the 13 great emperors in madness, he took out a token. The token belonged to Emperor Jiao, who had escaped from Imperial Peak. Emperor Jiao, listen to me. Find a place to hide with Abysmal Saint Master for now. Don't be in a hurry to leave Three Emperors' world. After he sent out a simple message, Jian Wushuang didn't worry about if Emperor Jiao replied, but his eyes grew red with madness as he looked at the 13 great emperors in front of him. Haha, come on, come on. Jian Wushuang's hysterical laughter burst out. His hysterical laugh made people feel that he was in a hopeless situation, that he was experiencing madness before death. At the same time, Jian Wushuang's divine body increased in size again. He was about 10,000 zhang tall. With such a huge size, he was simply a giant target to the surrounding 13 great emperors. The great emperor's attacks hit Jian Wushuang even more easily. However, he could cover a bigger range with his body size. The damage that he could cause to the surrounding golden whirlpool was even greater. Jian Wushuang became a madman who was fighting to his death. He fought with his all against the surrounding great emperors. The terrifying attacks shook the entire golden whirlpool, and the originally quivering golden whirlpool shook even more vigorously. Rumble. There was a ferocious rumble and a storm took place in the golden whirlpool. The terrifying storm stirred an enormous amount of pure energy in Emperor Supreme Rock and it started roaring. In an instant, Jian Wushuang and all great emperors in the golden whirlpool were engulfed within the energy storm. In the storm, there was a boundless gale howling and people couldn't keep their eyes open. Oh no! This crazy man. The 13 great emperors looked on in distress. The balance of the surrounding golden whirlpool was broken apart by Jian Wushuang. The energy storm was caused by the imbalance of the golden whirlpool. The aura he carried has diminished, a great emperor suddenly said. Huh. The other great emperor looked at Jian Wushuang. As expected, Jian Wushuang's aura was obviously weaker than it had been before. One should know that from the beginning of the massacre until then, Jian Wushuang's fighting power had been at its peak. He wasn't affected at all. However, his aura had diminished then. In other words, he was beginning to get hurt. Haha, I thought he was really invincible and unbeatable. It turns out that he can be hurt too. He should be proud that he could last so long under the besiegement of 13 great emperors. Regardless, he has his limits. Forget about the golden whirlpool. Kill Jian Wushuang first. All right. The 13 great emperors instantly reached a mutual agreement and launched attacks simultaneously. In the energy storm happening in the golden whirlpool, they continued to hem Jian Wushuang in. Die. Jian Wushuang constantly roared and he became even more violent and crazy. However, his aura grew weaker and he started spitting blood. It was obvious that he was coming to an end. Finally, as Ling Zong's battle axe hit on his huge divine body, his divine body began to collapse. Virum. The speed of his collapse was extremely fast. After a short while, Jian Wushuang's divine body turned into divine power that scattered all around the golden whirlpool. In the golden whirlpool, the energy storm reached a terrifying level along with the madness of the battle. Only great emperors could stand straight in the storm. If it were any ordinary Sir God or Emperor God, they would have been killed in the energy storm. The energy storm was terrifying. Hence, after Jian Wushuang's divine body had collapsed, his flesh and blood that scattered around, including his divine power, was instantly swept by the energy storm. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The 13 great emperors appeared in the place where Jian Wushuang's divine body had collapsed and looked into the surrounding void. He's finally dead? The expressions on the 13 great emperors looked complicated. It stirred a billowing wave from the bottom of their hearts. A total of 13 great emperors had worked together. There were so many powerful great emperors, including Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man among the group. Even so, they had used such a long time and put in great effort to finally kill Jian Wushuang. Although Jian Wushuang wasn't the strongest enemy that they had ever fought against, there was no doubt that he was absolutely the one with the strongest defense power and had taken the most beating. However, regardless, Jian Wushuang was killed by them. Sword Emperor is quite impressive. Look, he is already dead, but his divine power and aura are still terrifying, one of the great emperors commented. The other great emperors looked at the surrounding void. It was true. The surrounding void and even the energy storm in the golden whirlpool was covered in an enormous amount of divine power and aura. They were still shockingly strong. The great emperors merely complimented casually and thought Jian Wushuang was truly impressive. When one's power reached their level, they would leave behind an enormous amount of divine power and aura. It was perfectly normal. The divine power and aura would slowly be dispersed as time flew past. They didn't need to bother with it. Oh yeah, where is Jian Wushuang's Chen Kuan ring and his treasures? A great emperor immediately searched around the place that Jian Wushuang had died. However, he swept his soul power across but couldn't find any treasure. He couldn't even find the divine weapon that Jian Wushuang had used. What happened? The great emperor looked confused. It should have been swept away by the energy storm in the golden whirlpool. His divine body increased to such a size and it covered too wide a range. The energy storm in the golden whirlpool is so strong, it could wipe away his treasure in an instant, another great emperor commented. I noticed earlier that his Chen Kuan ring was swept away by an energy storm. I wanted to stop it, but I was quite far away from the Chen Kuan ring, another great emperor said. Hence, the great emperors were not suspicious about it. It was such a terrifying energy storm. Most importantly, Jian Wushuang's size was so huge. At the very moment at which his divine body collapsed, it became perfectly understandable that his treasure would be blown away by the energy storm. Let's think of a way to stabilize the golden whirlpool first. Then we can search through the area carefully to see if we can find any of Jian Wushuang's treasure, Ling Zong said. The great emperors on the spot nodded simultaneously. However, Jian Wushuang had caused quite a bit of damage to the golden whirlpool. It would be rather troublesome to recover it. Chapter 2039 failed. The great emperors and three emperors' world immediately thought of a way to recover the golden whirlpool. The golden whirlpool viewed the Emperor Supreme Rock as its core. As long as the Emperor Supreme Rock wasn't destroyed, the golden whirlpool could be recovered. On top of that, although Jian Wushuang had tried his best to destroy the golden whirlpool, he hadn't hurt the foundation of the golden whirlpool. As the great emperors and three emperors' world worked together, they only took a few days' time to repair the entire golden whirlpool. The huge golden whirlpool resumed its calmness entirely and only the divine power and aura remained. They continued to fill every corner in the golden whirlpool. After the golden whirlpool was repaired, the great emperors and three emperors' world searched through the place thoroughly once again, but it was a pity that they couldn't find any of Jian Wushuang's treasure. They were helpless about it. The golden whirlpool drove the dark millstone and they were connected via spacetime. When the terrifying energy storm took place, it had possibly swept Jian Wushuang's treasure to the dark millstone via the spacetime. The great emperors couldn't do anything about it. Imperial Peak slowly calmed down. Of course, everything that happened there was reported to the three overlords in the dark void at the first instant. Lung Rushue, Demon King, the Savage Man, the Blurry Blood Man gathered together. Jian Wushuang is finally dead, the Blurry Blood Man said. Humph, this B***** made some trouble for us before he died, Demon King humphed coldly. Regardless, Jian Wushuang had died and Great Emperor Ji Luo died too. With Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao who were still in Three Emperors' world, they wouldn't be able to do anything much. Next, we shall only concentrate on fighting against the eternal chaotic world, the Blurry Blood Man said. The People's Sanctuary Alliance have found out that the four members experts troop failed and couldn't be resolved from within. They will definitely gather countless forces of countless experts to fight head-on. They will try to destroy our Great Formation. However, as long as the Emperor Supreme Rock remains intact, the Great Formation will be indestructible. They are destined to fail, Demon King smiled maliciously. That's a definite. For this Great Formation, for this dark millstone, we prepared ourselves over so many years. How could they destroy it just like that? Eternal chaotic world must be exterminated. The Blurry Blood Man clenched his hands and the fire in his empty eyes was burning. Demon King was equally confident. Only Lung Rushue sat there without making any comment. But if one looked closely, they would notice that her expression was complicated. Jian Wushuang, you died in the end? Hehe, I thought you'd be able to survive until the end and appear before me. It seems that you are only SOSO. Lung Rushue smirked coldly and she quickly resumed calm. In the void far away from Imperial City in Three Emperors' world, there were two figures that hid there with their auras reined in. The two people were naturally Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao, who had escaped from Imperial Peak. There is no response from the communication token of Sword Emperor and Great Emperor Ji Luo. It seems that. Abysmal Saint Master looked distressed. Emperor Jiao Qiao became quiet too. After they escaped from Imperial Peak, they immediately kept in touch with Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo. Besides Jian Wushuang, who had sent a message in the beginning, there was no other news after. It meant that they passed away. Emperor God Jiao Qiao sighed. He felt heartache, but he also felt very helpless. He was really helpless. In the situation back then, he and Abysmal Saint Master could only escape. Then, Eternal Chaotic World would at least keep 2 more people with the fighting power of a great emperor. If they were to stay there, there was no doubt that they would die. There was no possibility of survival. Plus, they wouldn't be able to help Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo. One could say that the 2 of them had made the wisest and most accurate decision possible. Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo knew that clearly. Hence they had no complaints. On the contrary, they were glad that they had managed to escape. At least, not all members in the experts troop were dead then. Sword Emperor and Ji Luo passed away. There are only you and I left. What should we do next? Do we continue to think about how to destroy the Emperor's Supreme Rock? Emperor Jiao Qiao looked at Abysmal Saint Master. He wasn't confident at all. When the 4 of them were in their prime, they were well prepared and they picked the best time. They had never thought that they would fall perfectly into the enemy's trap. Then 2 out of 4 of them passed away. They couldn't be entering Imperial Peak, just the 2 of them. Forget about the fact that they were in Great Emperor Realm. Even if they were to enter by sheer luck, it would be impossible for them to destroy the Emperor's Supreme Rock. Don't act hastily. Didn't Jian Wushuang tell the 2 of us to stay put in 3 Emperor's World before he passed away? Let's find a place to hide. Then we will report what happened to Sanctuary Alliance, Abysmal Saint Master said. Emperor Jiao Qiao nodded faintly. In the lofty palace in the void around the dark millstone and eternal chaotic world, the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance were gathered there. Then the great emperors looked to be in distress and they kept quiet. They had heard from Emperor Jiao Qiao's doppelganger that the experts' troop that entered Dark Millstone fell into the enemy's trap and they were besieged by 13 great emperors. On top of that, Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo had passed away. There were only Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiao Qiao who had escaped. The Emperor's Supreme Rock is located right in the middle. There are too many experts there. The 4-member expert troop spent so much time and effort but they failed. It means that it will be impossible for Sanctuary Alliance to destroy the Great Formation from inside of the Dark Millstone. Hence, we can only fight head-on. Emperor Bai's cold voice reverberated and broke the silence in the hall. The great emperors looked at Emperor Bai simultaneously. For the past 20 years, under the guidance of Sanctuary Alliance, Eternal Chaotic World has started preparation. It isn't easy to gather all peak fighting power in a short time. We have to speed up, especially in terms of the special tribes, Emperor Bai said. The great emperors nodded. Jiao Qiao, stay back in 3 Emperors World with Abysmal. Find a place to hide. Who knows? The 2 of you might come in handy again, Emperor Bai commanded. Yes, Emperor Jiao Qiao nodded. All right, go get ready, Emperor Bai waved. From the beginning until the end, he didn't bring up the passing of Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo, nor did he comment much. Although the surrounding great emperors were confused, they didn't ask but left. However, Emperor Jiao Qiao's doppelganger stayed back. Chapter 2040? Chapter 2041. The Bee in the Hall. There was only Emperor Bai and Emperor Jiao Qiao's doppelganger. Mr. Emperor Bai. Emperor Jiao Qiao looked at Emperor Bai in confusion. Just as everyone left, Emperor Bai sent him a message in private for him to stay back. It was obvious that Emperor had something in mind, that he wanted to see him in private. Jiao Qiao, let me ask you. Did you see Sword Emperor and Great Emperor Ji Luo's passing with your own eyes? Emperor Bai fixed his gaze upon Emperor Jiao Qiao. I didn't, Emperor Jiao Qiao shook his head. However, Great Emperor Ji Luo paid a great price to open up the space-time tunnel. It was impossible for her to open it for the second time. They were fighting against 13 great emperors in Imperial Peak. Sword Emperor and Great Emperor Ji Luo stood almost no chance of survival. And there is no reply from their communications tokens. Emperor Jiao Qiao's judgment was in accordance. In such a situation, it would be unrealistic if Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo wanted to stay alive. Emperor Bai creased his eyebrows and said, You said that Jian Wushuang sent you another message not long after you ran out of Imperial Peak? Yes, he told me to stay in 3 Emperors World. Don't leave in a hurry, Emperor Jiao Qiao said. Is that so? Emperor Bai nodded. All right then. That's it. Yes, Emperor Jiao didn't understand what Emperor Bai was trying to ask, but he didn't think further. He left very quickly. In the hall, only Emperor Bai was sitting there alone. There was a strange emotion shimmering in his eyes. Just as everyone was certain that Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Ji Luo died, he was in doubt. After all, he was also an inverse cultivator. He knew clearly how powerful one in the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill was. Although Jian Wushuang was only in stage 1, it wouldn't be easy to kill him. On top of that, Jian Wushuang had many powerful trump cards to hand. Besides, he also had a 7-treasure divine elixir. "Young man, I hope that you are still alive," Emperor Bai muttered, and there was hope in his eyes. An imperial peak in 3 Emperors' world. In the middle of the 3 statues, the huge golden whirlpool resumed normal operation. The entire golden whirlpool was huge, but it had recovered from the damage done during the battle. There was almost no scar left behind. If there was any remaining sign, it was still filled with divine power and aura in every corner of the golden whirlpool. The divine power and aura were powerful. From the great emperors and 3 emperors' world's point of view, the divine power and aura would disperse over time. However, just as everyone redirected their attention from the golden whirlpool, the remaining divine power and aura slowly started to gather at the core of the golden whirlpool. The divine power that scattered all around the golden whirlpool started substantiating as well. After a short while, there was a human figure that appeared in the golden whirlpool. He lifted his head and there was a cold-looking young face. It was Jian Wushuang, who had passed away. He was still alive. Jian Wushuang stood in the depth of the golden whirlpool and reigned in all his aura while he looked around himself. Then, there was still a divine power that was moving back to him from the surrounding aura. Just as the divine power gathered, Jian Wushuang's divine body completed the reorganization. However, there seemed to be less than 10% of divine power left. "It seems that I won the bet." Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and his eyes beamed with joy. After countless life and death trials, he had been through countless dangers and hopeless situations. The more hopeless the situation was, the calmer he was, the more accurate his judgment would be. And he had the guts to take the risk, to gamble. Now it was considered a great bet to him. In the previous battle, he had been besieged by 13 great emperors and there was a great formation that isolated Imperial Peak. He had no chance of escaping. In such a situation, there was only one way for him to survive. It was for everyone to think he was dead. In short, he had played dead. However, how difficult would it be to fool all 13 great emperors? Ordinary people wouldn't have been able to pull it off. However, Jian Wushuang, who was an inverse cultivator, who possessed a perfect chaotic divine body, could. Hence, he had intentionally let his divine body grow in size and reach about 10,000 zhang tall. He did so because he would look like he was acting out of madness to damage the golden whirlpool. In actual fact, his goal was to spread his divine power wider after his divine body collapsed. It'd be best if his divine power could scatter all around the golden whirlpool under the power of the energy storm. Then, he had abundant divine power, but he didn't repair his divine power to repair his divine body when he was attacked by the 13 great emperors. It was so that he could create a scene where his aura grew weaker and collapsed in the end. Then the 13 great emperors wouldn't be suspicious. Hence, the scene that Jian Wushuang had imagined in his head was realized. His 10,000 zhang tall divine body couldn't take the mad attacks of the 13 great emperors and it finally collapsed. The enormous amount of his divine power scattered all around. When the energy storm swept out, his divine power was scattered to every corner of the golden whirlpool. Hence, it had led to the remainder of Jian Wushuang divine power and aura all over the golden whirlpool. If it was anywhere else, such as a spacious void, the 13 great emperors absolutely would take Jian Wushuang's remaining divine power and he would vanish. However, they were in the golden whirlpool. The golden whirlpool was too important to 3 emperors' world and the coverage of his divine power was too wide. Hence, the 13 great emperors couldn't take it entirely. Hence, they could only let his divine power lie around in the golden whirlpool and wait for it to disperse on its own. The 13 great emperors left after they had repaired the golden whirlpool. From the beginning until the end, the great emperors had never suspected that Jian Wushuang was still alive. It was impossible that they would suspect it because Jian Wushuang's divine body had collapsed in front of them. The 13 of them had seen it clearly. Under such circumstances, any ordinary cultivator would be utterly dead. However, they weren't informed about how terrifying an inverse cultivator was. Nor did they know the true power that a 7th step in inverse cultivation possessed. Hence, Jian Wushuang had survived. He had won the bet. He relied on his perfect chaotic divine body and his disguise to fool the 13 great emperors. Then, after everything had stabilized and the 13 great emperors were no longer concerned about the golden whirlpool, Jian Wushuang reorganized his divine power and recovered his divine body. The great emperors in Three Emperors world had no idea about it. Chapter 2041 One who survives a great disaster is destined to good fortune forever after. Luckily I won the bet. Otherwise, the only choice I would have had back then would have been to stop at nothing and play all my trump cards to fight a life-and-death battle. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. With such actions, he might have caused some casualties among the great emperors from Three Emperors world. However, there was no doubt that he would have died. Now at least had survived. In the golden whirlpool, Jian Wushuang waved. Virum. There was a ray of dark light that burst out. It was Jian Wushuang's Chen King ring that contained his treasures, including Blood Mountain sword, River Mountain map and so on. The Chen Kuan ring had always been under the coverage of his divine power. Most importantly, due to the fact that he was still alive, Chen Kuan ring had an owner and it wouldn't spread any aura. In addition to that, it was covered with his divine power. Hence, the 13 great emperor couldn't find it. Jian Wushuang put on his Chen Kuan ring and his 5-gem armor. At the same time he took out 2 communication tokens. The 2 tokens belonged to Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiuqiao. As long as they were still within Three Emperors world, they would be able to keep in touch with Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang simply glanced through it and he knew that the 2 great emperors had sent him many messages after they'd left Imperial Peak. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. He didn't reply and put the 2 tokens away. He didn't want anyone to know that he was alive, including the people in Sanctuary Alliance. Then Jian Wushuang's body turned illusionary and appeared in the middle of the golden whirlpool, above the huge Emperor Supreme rock. There was a faint golden light there. The golden light was much brighter than the other places in the golden whirlpool. The golden light was actually a unique prohibition. If I'm not mistaken, the prohibition is a vital element that connects the golden whirlpool with the Emperor Supreme rock. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes while he walked before the golden prohibition. As his divine power scattered around the huge golden whirlpool, he also studied the revolving golden whirlpool. By then, he had already realized the existence of the golden prohibition. He could tell that the golden prohibition was extremely mysterious. Besides, the boundless pure energy in the Emperor Supreme rock actually surged through the golden prohibition. In other words, without the golden prohibition, it would be impossible for the golden whirlpool to obtain energy from the Emperor Supreme rock. Nor would it be possible for the dark millstone to operate. Previously, we didn't understand the structure of the golden whirlpool at all. We only knew to damage the golden whirlpool blindly. In the end, although the golden whirlpool was damaged, the experts in Three Emperors world repaired it with ease. If I could find out about the golden prohibition sooner and figure out a way to destroy the golden prohibition, I'm afraid it wouldn't be that easy if the great emperors in Three Emperors world wanted to repair it. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, "Don't act hastily. Let's take a look." Jian Wushuang muttered and slowly reached his hand into the golden prohibition. Suddenly, rumble. A vast ocean of pure energy flowed to Jian Wushuang directly. This is... Jian Wushuang was shocked at first. Then he was filled with excitement. He could feel that the golden prohibition contained an unbelievable amount of pure energy. The pure energy wasn't utilized by the surrounding whirlpool but could be refined and absorbed straight away. Could it be? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes while he had an idea that popped into his head. The moment the idea rose, it couldn't be suppressed. Jian Wushuang slowly walked forward and then submerged himself within the golden prohibition. He was covered under the golden prohibition entirely. After Jian Wushuang entered the golden prohibition, he felt that he was submerged into an ocean of pure energy. There was too much pure energy and it was immense. His divine body couldn't help but shiver. He was shivering in excitement. Jian Wushuang could feel the blood in his body boiling and his cells were cheering with joy. He didn't intentionally guide it, but the surrounding pure energy poured into his divine body continuously. His divine body instantly refined and absorbed it. The speed of refinery and absorption was shockingly fast. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and started absorbing pure energy to his heart's content. Thanks to the speed of absorption, he who had originally only had less than 10% divine power, started recovering at a shocking speed. 10%, 20%, 30%. In merely half a day's time, his divine power recovered by more than 30%. Haha, such a recovery speed is much faster than King of Venomous Worms. Jian Wushuang was extremely excited. King of Venomous Worms had been parasitizing his body and fighting along with him. He would recover Jian Wushuang's divine power as well as a wound. However, when Jian Wushuang reached the 7th step of the perfect chaotic divine body, King of Venomous Worms' recovery speed wasn't significantly helpful to Jian Wushuang. The trip to the Dark Millstone was dangerous and Jian Wushuang wasn't sure what he would go through. Hence, he didn't want King of Venomous Worms to take the risk. He had left King of Venomous Worms in Greenfire World and had left a drop of inheritance blood essence. He was prepared for the worst. If he were to pass away, King of Venomous Worms could rely on the drop of inheritance blood essence to look for the next ancient god. Fortunately, he had done so. Otherwise, when his divine body collapsed and turned into the scattered divine power all over the golden whirlpool, the existence of King of Venomous Worms would be hard to conceal. He most likely would die at the hands of the great emperors from Three Emperors World. Now, although Jian Wushuang didn't have King of Venomous Worms to recover his divine power for him, the constant flow of pure energy within the Golden Prohibition was stronger by a few folds. In 2 days' time his divine power completely recovered. Jian Wushuang never once left the Golden Prohibition but constantly absorbed the pure energy. His refinery and absorption speed became faster and faster. Like the saying, one who survives a great disaster is destined to good fortune forever after. It is true. Jian Wushuang laughed. He knew clearly that the Golden Prohibition was absolutely a great opportunity for him. A great opportunity? One should know that the first stage to the third stage in the sixth step of inverse cultivation required an accumulation of enormous divine power. Jian Wushuang put an extravagant time and effort to accumulate his divine power to his extreme limit through Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, and also via absorbing Star Demon Core. At the seventh step of inverse cultivation, Chaotic Supreme possessed a perfect chaotic divine body that was made of pure divine power. Hence, the divine power required to level up from stage 1 to stage 3 was an enormous amount of accumulated divine power. Now, Jian Wushuang was in the Golden Prohibition and the Golden Prohibition obtained boundless pure energy from the Emperor Supreme Rock. He could continue to enhance his divine power endlessly through absorbing pure energy until he reached the second stage. Chapter 2042 The Second Stage of Chaotic Supreme. Jian Wushuang constantly elevated his divine power as he stayed in the Golden Prohibition. The Golden Prohibition was unique to begin with. There was no one who noticed Jian Wushuang in the Golden Prohibition. There were 3 great emperors who continued to stand guard outside the huge golden whirlpool all year round. Occasionally, the 3 great emperors would release their soul power to scan through the golden whirlpool. However, their souls couldn't detect the scenery within the Golden Prohibition. Naturally, they didn't find out about Jian Wushuang. It was even more impossible to see him with naked eyes. Hence, the entire golden whirlpool became peaceful. Jian Wushuang stayed in the Golden Prohibition to refine and absorb divine power aggressively in order to level up his power, but no one knew. As for the Dark Millstone, it wasn't affected at all. It continued to move in eternal chaotic world and it continued to crush everything. Its size was growing bigger and bigger over time. The experts in eternal chaotic world were preparing at the fastest speed possible. In such a situation, time flew past. In the blink of an eye, 30 years passed. In the Golden Prohibition above the Emperor Supreme Rock, Jian Wushuang, who had been keeping his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. In the instant when he opened his eyes, his aura underwent a drastic change. Previously he had merely been on the Sir God level. Now he had reached Emperor God realm. I have reached the second stage of Chaotic Supreme. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and he was filled with excitement. One should know that it had not been long since he had stepped foot onto the 7th step of inverse cultivation. According to ordinary cultivation, he would at least need tens of thousands of years or even longer before he could get to the second stage. However, he only spent 30 years in the Golden Prohibition before he broke through. This was the opportunity. It could also be described as Jian Wushuang's luck. When Jian Wushuang had reached the second stage of the Chaotic Supreme, his overall power had naturally increased tremendously. First of all, his divine body had been enhanced. Then it was followed by his divine power. From the first stage to the second stage, it was a transformation in quality in terms of his divine power. Judging from the strength of his divine power, it was stronger by a few times. Most importantly, the intensity of his divine power had grown. The divine power in the second stage was much more abundant than in the first stage. Such abundant divine power represented that his defense ability had increased again. If he was the first stage, he could reorganize his divine body 4 times. Then, as his divine body enhanced again, it would be much more difficult to reorganize his power. But his divine power could support him in reorganizing his divine body by 7 or even 8 times. It was even more ridiculous, it was even more terrifying. However, my ancient tribe bloodline didn't improve along with this breakthrough, Jian Wushuang muttered. In between his eyebrows, there were only 8 ancient tribe stars. Jian Wushuang could do nothing about it. Regardless, his power continued to increase tremendously. Before this, I was only in the first stage. Relying on the pure divine power that I enhanced via the first volume of immemorial celestial body I cultivated, in addition to my ancient tribe bloodline power, my power had already far beyond any ordinary great emperor. When I fight head-on, even when I was up against the beast-like bald man from 3 Emperor World, Ling Zong, he was only just my match. Now that my divine power has increased again, in terms of power and strength, there shouldn't be any great emperor from 3 Emperors World who can compare to me favorably. Even if I met the bald man, he couldn't suppress me in terms of strength. Jian Wushuang beamed with joy. From the first stage to the second stage, his fighting power had transformed in terms of quality. He was absolutely the top among all great emperors. Besides Emperor Bai, there was no one in Sanctuary Alliance who could be his match. Not only was he strong, but his defensive ability was terrifyingly strong. He was almost invincible. If he had to state a flaw of his, it would only be that his comprehension of doctrine was slightly lower. Jian Wushuang was content to have reached such a level in a short time. Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief and took out a token. The token was naturally Emperor Jiu Qiao's. Emperor Jiu Qiao, Jian Wushuang finally sent a message to Emperor Jiu Qiao. On a remote mountain in Imperial City far away, there was a cave dwelling that had recently been opened. Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao had been hiding in the cave dwelling for the past 30 years. When Jian Wushuang sent a message, Emperor Jiu Qiao immediately received it. Sword Emperor. It's a message from Sword Emperor. Emperor Jiu Qiao, who was reclining leisurely, instantly stood up. His eyes were beaming with joy. What? Abysmal Saint Master was instantly shaken too. He looked at Emperor Jiu Qiao and asked, Jiu Qiao, what did you say just now? Sword Emperor. Emperor Jiu Qiao was excited. He sent a message. How is this possible? Abysmal Saint Master looked at him in disbelief. Didn't Jian Wushuang die 30 years ago? In such a situation he should have been dead. There was absolutely no chance of survival. Why has he suddenly sent a message after 30 years? Hurry up and ask him, Abysmal Saint Master said. Emperor Jiu Qiao immediately took out a token and asked closely, Sword Emperor, is it really you? You didn't die? Of course I am living well, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. How could it be? How did you escape from such a situation? Emperor Jiu Qiao asked in disbelief. I didn't escape. I am still in Imperial Peak and I am in the Golden Whirlpool. I used a unique way to fool the great emperors from 3 Emperor Worlds into thinking that I am dead. As a detailed reason, I could only explain that it is related to a unique ability I have as an inverse cultivator, Jian Wushuang answered. I see, Emperor Jiu Qiao nodded. He knew that inverse cultivators were scary and they had an extra unique ability in every step. However, he didn't know what ability the 7th step in inverse cultivation had. Regardless, the unique ability that the 7th step in inverse cultivation had seemed to have rescued Jian Wushuang. That's awesome. It's great that you survived. Emperor Jiu Qiao and Abysmal Saint Master were filled with excitement. Then Emperor Jiu Qiao asked, How about Ji Luo? How is she? Great Emperor Ji Luo passed away. I saw her die with my own eyes. She performed the secret skill of Star Palace and Soul Ignition to fight for more time for me, Jian Wushuang said in a low voice. Although Great Emperor Ji Luo wasn't a close friend per se, the 4 of them were comrades in arms that had been through life and death situations. The final decision that Great Emperor Ji Luo had made at the last moment of her life had earned Jian Wushuang's respect. There was no doubt that Great Emperor Ji Luo was a hero that had died for eternal chaotic world. Chapter 2043 Double Agent? Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao became quiet when they heard Jian Wushuang's reply, but they weren't surprised. Jian Wushuang had survived because of his unique ability as an inverse cultivator. On the other hand, Great Emperor Ji Luo didn't have the ability. Regardless, it is great news that you survived. I have to report to Sanctuary Alliance about this, Emperor Jiu Qiao said. Don't be in a hurry, Jian Wushuang cut him off. Why? Emperor Jiu Qiao was confused. Don't spread the news about me being alive. Only you and Abysmal Saint Master know about this, Jian Wushuang said. Sword Emperor, you mean? Emperor Jiu Qiao was initially stunned, but he quickly responded. Abysmal Saint Master squinted his eyes and said, Jian Wushuang, you mean that there is a double agent from Holocaust Sect or Acheron Palace in Sanctuary Alliance? Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Didn't you suspect this? Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao looked distressed. As great emperors they had to be intelligent. Before Jian Wushuang had pointed it out, they had had the suspicion. One should know that they were well prepared 30 years ago. They had found the correct time to take action and Jian Wushuang's disguise had been perfect all the time. In a normal situation, it would have been impossible for the great emperors in three-emperor world to know that Jian Wushuang had been into Imperial Peak. Let alone the fact that they'd set up a trap for Jian Wushuang to be in. In actual fact, not only had the great emperors from Three Emperors World known that they were in Imperial Peak long ago, but they had also been certain that they would take action during the doctrine propagation ceremony. Not long after they'd arrived in Three Emperors World, there had been 6 great emperors that found and besieged them. They were almost certain that they had been tracked by the experts in Three Emperors World all the time. How were they tracked? Naturally, there was people who had shared their information. Our mission isn't publicized in Sanctuary Alliance, only the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance know. In other words, could there be a double agent among the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance? Abysmal Saint Master creased his eyebrows. Any great emperor expert would be one of the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. If there was a double agent among the great emperors, the person was well hidden. He was very skilled. We still can't determine if there was a double agent among the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. But to be safe we will not share our action plan. Emperor Jiu Qiao, if you door-port in, you can only tell Emperor Bai that I am alive, Jian Wushuang exhorted. I understand, Emperor Jiu Qiao nodded. Among the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance, Emperor Bai definitely couldn't be a double agent. There was no doubt about it. Because if Emperor Bai was a double agent, Eternal Chaotic World didn't stand a chance to survive. As for the others, anyone was possible. Including Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao. Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao gave their all after they entered Three Emperors World and Jian Wushuang had witnessed their effort with his own eyes. Although the possibility of one of them being a double agent was extremely low, Jian Wushuang wouldn't send them any message immediately after he reorganized his divine body, just to be safe. After all, if either Emperor Jiu Qiao or Abysmal Saint Master was a double agent, they would immediately inform the great emperors in Three Emperors World. By then Jian Wushuang would definitely be doomed. After his power increased tremendously and he was confident enough to deal with all possible outcomes, he would then send a message to Emperor Jiu Qiao. In the lofty palace in the void near the dark millstone and eternal chaotic world. As expected, he didn't die. Emperor Bai sat there when he received a message from Emperor Jiu Qiao's doppelganger. His eyes beamed with joy, but he wasn't too surprised. He had already been wondering if Jian Wushuang had really died 30 years ago. Now it seemed that he really hadn't. Mr. Emperor Bai, Sword Emperor requested me to share a message with you. He wants you to not share the news that he is alive with the others. Besides, he is preparing to take action against the Emperor Supreme Rock again and he has already drawn up a plan. However, he would need Emperor Bai to give full cooperation. Emperor Jiu Qiao's doppelganger sent a message and shared Jian Wushuang's plan briefly. Emperor Bai heard and nodded. The plan is great. Not only could he escape, but he could also certify whether there is any double agent among the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. However, there is a prerequisite for the plan, which is for him to walk out of Imperial Peak alive. Jiu Qiao, you tell him that I will fully collaborate with him, but he has to be extremely careful. Yes, Emperor Jiu Qiao nodded. In the huge golden whirlpool in Imperial Peak, Jian Wushuang received Emperor Bai's reply through Emperor Jiu Qiao. Then he prepared to take action. He let out a breath. Then his gaze fixed upon the golden prohibition in front of him. The golden prohibition was a great opportunity for him. In only 30 years' time he had broken through and reached the second stage via the golden prohibition. If he continued to stay in the golden prohibition, his divine body could continue to improve and he could reach the peak of the second stage. He might even reach the third stage, which was the ultimate stage in the 7th step of inverse cultivation. However, the time required for him to reach the third stage would be too long. He had spent 30 years to get from the first stage to the second stage. However, it would take at least 300 years to get from the second stage to the third stage, or even longer than that. Although a few hundred years or even a few thousand years didn't mean much to him. He could afford to wait, but Eternal Chaotic World couldn't. One should know that the dark millstone swept over and crushed everything over the years. Holy kingdoms vanished one after another. If the dark millstone continued to revolve for another 300 years, it would definitely reach a terrifying level. By then, when Jian Wushuang would destroy the Emperor Supreme Rock, an Eternal Chaotic World would be about to be destroyed then as well. Hence he couldn't wait any longer. He had to take action immediately to stop the Dark Millstone. The Golden Prohibition was the pivotal role to obtain the pure energy from the Emperor's supreme rock. "Destroy it first," Jian Wushuang muttered, and Blood Mountain Sword appeared in his hand. There was a bolt of sword intention that soared up from Jian Wushuang's body. At the same time, his divine power, which was a few times stronger than 30 years ago, soared too. Jian Wushuang strengthened his grip and swung with his Blood Mountain Sword. A move like strong wind with the momentum of rainstorm. It was the move that focused on power the most from Sword Principle Shen Luo, Blast Rainstorm. Oh. A terrifying sword light suddenly appeared in the middle of the Golden Whirlpool. Then it instantly slashed at the Golden Whirlpool brutally. The power of the Golden Prohibition was extraordinary. The Golden Prohibition could resist any ordinary Great Emperor attack. But then, just as Jian Wushuang struck, crash, the Golden Prohibition was broken into two from the middle. Chapter 2044 Demolish? The Golden Prohibition shattered. The originally organized Golden Whirlpool lost its balance and stirred up a great commotion. Rumble. The entire huge Golden Whirlpool quivered vigorously. The ocean of pure energy instantly turned into a terrifying energy storm and swept out. There was a sudden explosion of energy storm. It absolutely could tear an Emperor God into pieces at the first instance. Even an expert of Great Emperor level who had a weaker divine body would be severely injured by the sudden howl of energy storm. However, Jian Wushuang could stand strong in the middle of the energy storm. During the war 30 years ago, I attacked the Golden Whirlpool for so long and the energy storm that I stirred up wasn't this strong. As expected, the Golden Prohibition is the pivotal element of the surrounding Great Formation, Jian Wushuang smiled. The Golden Prohibition shattered and the entire Golden Whirlpool collapsed. However, Jian Wushuang's gaze was fixed upon the mountain-sized Emperor's Supreme Rock in front of him. The Emperor's Supreme Rock was at the root of everything. The Golden Prohibition, the Golden Whirlpool, even the Dark Millstone was powered by the Emperor's Supreme Rock as the source of their energy. Then, even though Jian Wushuang had destroyed the Golden Prohibition and the Golden Whirlpool, the experts in Three Emperors' world could still have a way to recover them as long as the Emperor's Supreme Rock was still there. Without the guidance of the Golden Prohibition, I wonder if I could refine the Emperor's Supreme Rock directly? There was an idea that popped up in Jian Wushuang's head and he immediately gave it a try. Just as he was trying his best to refine the Emperor's Supreme Rock, there was a great commotion in Imperial Peak. The three great emperors in the palace above the Golden Whirlpool stood guard at the Golden Whirlpool all year round. They were naturally the first to notice the drastic change in the Golden Whirlpool. However, when the three great emperors came back to reality, the Golden Whirlpool had already begun to collapse. Shit. What happened? How could this happen? The three great emperors were shocked. They had been in the void above the Golden Whirlpool and they had been watching the Golden Whirlpool. A few moments ago, the Golden Whirlpool had still been at peace. Then the Golden Whirlpool had collapsed? The redhead elder shouted as he pointed at the middle of the Golden Whirlpool, where the huge Emperor's Supreme Rock was. They could faintly see a human figure there. The asterisk eminent. The three of their faces grew grave and they immediately charged to the collapsing Golden Whirlpool. Besides, there were figures soaring in Imperial Cabinet located at the highest point in Imperial Peak. The figures included the beast-like bald man, Ling Zong, who Jian Wushuang was familiar with, the tall and sturdy middle-aged man that was not any weaker than Ling Zong, and also the other 8 great emperors. They noticed the drastic change in the Golden Whirlpool. How could it be? Let's go. Let's rush over. The great emperors looked distressed and they rushed to the Golden Whirlpool at their fastest possible speed. As for the cultivators in early stage and middle stage Chaotic Realm and Imperial Peak, they were astonished too. In the collapsing Golden Whirlpool, it was replaced with a terrifying energy storm. In the middle of the storm, Jian Wushuang was trying to refine the Emperor's Supreme Rock. However, he gave up after a short while. This is too huge. The Emperor's Supreme Rock is too huge. The pure energy it contains is ridiculously strong. With my power, I could refine it, but it would require a very long time. I would need at least 10,000 years. On top of that, the Emperor's Supreme Rock is quite unique. I can't take it away if I didn't refine it. Jian Wushuang let out a sigh, but he looked like he'd already made a decision. If I can't refine and absorb it, I will have to forcefully destroy it. Jian Wushuang raised his sword up high in the sky. There was a supreme sword intention of an emperor's sword that gradually swept out. Among all sword principles that Jian Wushuang mastered, the strongest in terms of power was still King Sword Principle. However, King Sword Principle required time for power accumulation. As his opponent hardly gave him any time during close body combat, Sword Principle Shen Luo would be a better one to perform. but now no one could stop him. Hence, Jian Wushuang naturally performed King Sword Principle. Besides, Jian Wushuang knew how sturdy the Emperor Supreme Rock was long ago. Jian Wushuang had once performed Blast Rainstorm on Emperor Supreme Rock, but he hadn't left any mark on it. Although his power had improved tremendously, it would still be unrealistic if he wanted to completely destroy Emperor Supreme Rock with King Sword Principle. Hence, when he performed the Sword Principle, there was a bolt of mysterious yet fierce power that filled the air. The power as the power of Star. Jian Wushuang was performing his greatest trump card, the secret skill of Star Palace. It wasn't easy to perform the secret skill. Jian Wushuang would definitely not perform it unless it was at a crucial time. At this point he couldn't think so much because he had to destroy the Emperor Supreme Rock completely. There was a terrifying sword shadow that substantiated in the void from nowhere. The sword shadow was like the Emperor's sword. It was as though billions of heads would fall on the ground with one stroke. The power was enough to shake an ordinary great emperor. However, the terrifying sword shadow's power had increased by 1,000 times under the effect of the third volume in the secret skill of Star Palace. It was already enough to shake an ordinary great emperor to begin with. Now its power increased had by 1,000-fold? What had happened? Just how powerful was the stroke? There was no doubt that the power of the stroke exceeded a great emperor's capability. Even Emperor Bai, who was widely known as the strongest one in Eternal Chaotic World, would find it hard to achieve such a level when he performed his strongest hit. The great emperors from Three Emperors World who were rushing to the middle of the Golden Whirlpool were dumbfounded when they looked up at the sword shadow. Even the strongest Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man stood dumbfounded at the sight. Because they realized that the stroke wasn't something that the great emperors could achieve. The stroke hit the 100 tall, mountain-like Emperor Supreme Rock without any hindrance, the so-called Holy Crystal. The sword light hit the Holy Crystal and a terrifying power exploded. Rumble. Even a great emperor's full hit couldn't shake the mountain-like Emperor Supreme Rock, but it was quivering vigorously under the sword light. There was a vigorous quiver then. Crack, crack. There were soft cracking noises and all the cultivators in Three Emperors World stared with eyes wide opened. The cracks on the Emperor Supreme Rock became visible and the cracks became wider. In the end, the Emperor Supreme Rock shattered. Emperor Supreme Rock shattered. Chapter 2045 Anger. Shatter. When the top experts from Three Emperors World, who were rushing over, saw the scene where the Emperor Supreme Rock had shattered, their eyes were wide open. Some of the great emperors even stood there dumbfounded. Emperor Supreme Rock. That was the holy crystal that the Three Emperors World worshipped. Over the years, it had been towering within the Golden Whirlpool. It could be said that everything in Three Emperors World relied on the Emperor Supreme Rock. But then the Emperor Supreme Rock had shattered? No. The beast-like bald man Ling Zong let out a hysterical roar. His eyes were filled with boundless murderous intention and he looked at the figure located in the depths of the Golden Whirlpool. Coincidentally, the figure turned around to look at Ling Zong and the others who were there. Their gazes met. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, "Everyone in Three Emperors World, long time no see. How have you been?" When the great emperors from Three Emperors World saw Jian Wushuang, they were instantly stunned. Jian Wushuang? Tim? How could it be possible? Impossible. He died. We killed him. He died right in front of us. How could he be alive? There was one hysterical bellow after another. The great emperors couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had seen Jian Wushuang's divine body collapse with their own eyes and he was dead. But then, Jian Wushuang didn't die? Not only did he not die, but he has been hiding in the Golden Whirlpool. Now, he has even destroyed the Golden Whirlpool and the Holy Crystal. D***MN. After astonishment, everyone was raging with anger. Anger. The way the great emperors from Three Emperors World looked at Jian Wushuang showed their murderous intention. They wanted to tear Jian Wushuang apart. D***MN. Die. After a loud scream, the three great emperors who were guarding the Golden Whirlpool plunged towards Jian Wushuang under the lead of the red-headed elder. They were the closest to Jian Wushuang. Naturally, they were the first to take action. As for Ling Zong and the others, they had yet to reach the scene. Looking at the three great emperors charging at him, Jian Wushuang lifted the corners of his lips and formed a cold smirk. Blood Mountain sword in his hand drew a unique arc in the void in front of him. The shrill, cold sword light appeared in front of the three great emperors almost instantly. The stroke that Jian Wushuang performed was the move that focused on speed the most in Shen Luo sword principle, turn monstrous at one thought. As it was a move that focused on speed the most, it was traveling forward with a terrifying power then. Clang, clang, clang. There were 3 clangs and the 3 great emperors who were charging at Jian Wushuang suddenly stopped. Then they even took a few steps back. Yes. With one stroke the 3 great emperors were beaten off. How is this possible? The 3 of them looked up in astonishment. Jian Wushuang continued to smile. Then, his figure went illusionary and he wielded his sword again. Then, Jian Wushuang performed the most powerful move in Shen Luo sword principle, Blast Rainstorm. Pong. It was a move like strong wind with the momentum of rainstorm. As Jian Wushuang performed it with divine power, the power became even more ridiculously powerful. Let's fight against him at the same time, the red-headed elder immediately roared with a flash of terror in his eyes. The 3 great emperors were experienced. They naturally could tell how powerful Jian Wushuang's stroke was. Hence, they immediately took action together to block. The 3 of them joined forces to resist Jian Wushuang's stroke. But in the end, humph. The 3 of them let out a muffled humph at the same time and they flew backward from the impact. Besides the red-headed elder, the other 2 had blood flowing out of the corners of their lips. He is so powerful. The red-headed elder was astonished. However, when Jian Wushuang performed the sword principle to attack the 3 of them, his other hand, which had been left idle, casually slapped in the direction in which the 3 of them had retreated. The slap immediately brought about a terrifying handprint that seemed to contain boundless reincarnation. It was the reincarnation palm that Jian Wushuang comprehended. The palm covered the void where the 3 of them were. The 3 great emperors couldn't dodge it all. The universe became silent and the entire void cracked. The 3 great emperors that were engulfed by the reincarnation palm turned into flowing light and burst out. As they burst out, their faces grew pale and their auras were obviously much weaker than before. In merely 2 breaths of time, the 3 great emperors who had besieged Jian Wushuang were severely injured. Just then Ling Zong and the others rushed over at their top speeds from Imperial Cabinet arrived. Jian Wushuang. Ling Zong stared and his face distorted. He was just like a raging lion. He roared and charged to the front. He instantly turned into a huge beast and pounced at Jian Wushuang. Just as he approached Jian Wushuang, he clenched his battle axe with both his hands. Virum. The color of the universe changed. There was a huge, dark, terrifying axe shadow that appeared in the void above. It was slashing at Jian Wushuang. When the axe shadow descended, it broke the universe apart and it became yin and yang. Jian Wushuang was right below the terrifying axe shadow. He lifted his head and took a look at the descending axe shadow. Then he smiled faintly. We shall see if your axe skill is great or if my sword principle is stronger by a notch. Jian Wushuang said and wielded his sword. A resplendent sword shadow suddenly lit up. Shen Luo sword principle, the one that focused on power the most. Blast Rainstorm. The same sword principle performed by the same person. However, the difference was that Jian Wushuang had let his divine power and his ancient tribe bloodline power pour out to his limit. His power and strength, which were above any ordinary great emperor's, exploded. Bang. There was a loud bang. Both parties collided in the void. Then a huge spacetime black hole spread open mercilessly. In an instant, it swallowed the surrounding universe. The surrounding void drowned within. In the middle of the spacetime black hole, there was a figure that staggered and retreated. He took more than a dozen steps back and every single step was 10,000 li apart. He finally stopped with great effort. This person was the beast like a bald man, Ling Zong. Ling Zong looked at his quivering battle axe after he steadied himself. He was greatly astonished. He couldn't believe everything that had happened. He went all out to compete for power against Jian Wushuang and had lost? Had retreated from one stroke of Jian Wushuang's attack. How was this possible? This be *****. Ling Zong stared at Jian Wushuang. In his head, he recalled the 2 times when Head came across Jian Wushuang. Chapter 2046 Vented Anger. Ever since Jian Wushuang had come to 3 Emperors' world, Ling Zong had met him thrice. The first time, there were 6 great emperors that had besieged Jian Wushuang in Silver-Winged God Mansion. Then Jian Wushuang's power was merely at ordinary great emperor level. He didn't care about Jian Wushuang. At most, Jian Wushuang was only scary in terms of his defense power. Hence, the 6 great emperors besieged him but could do nothing to him. The second time was 30 years back. During the war, Jian Wushuang had once fought against him. Jian Wushuang was his match then. Now it was the 3rd time Head fought against Jian Wushuang. They fought head-on again and he went all out. However, he was beaten back by Jian Wushuang with one stroke. What's going on? If he hadn't known about Jian Wushuang's background and situation, he would have suspected Jian Wushuang had been hiding his true power since the beginning. In merely tens of years of time, one who only had ordinary great emperor power that he didn't care about had advanced by leaps and bounds to beyond his power. I thought you were amazing. But from what it seems now, you're a so. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly at Ling Zong. Ling Zong was triggered and spat, let's fight against him all together. I don't believe that we can't kill him. Then Long Zong attacked again. At the same time, the great emperors around him charged at Jian Wushuang with billowing murderous intention, including the 3 great emperors who were severely injured by Jian Wushuang. Hence, the scene where 13 great emperors joined forces to besiege one person 30 years ago reappeared. The person who was besieged was still Jian Wushuang. However, 30 years had passed. Jian Wushuang was no longer the person had been before. Naturally, the situation was different. Haha, come on. During the last fight, we didn't fight a hearty battle. This time, I shall play with all of you heartily. Jian Wushuang laughed as he was emboldened. Compared to 30 years ago, his divine body had improved tremendously, and the same applied to his divine power. If it was said that there were 13 great emperors who had joined forces to besiege him back then and it would take them a while to possibly kill him, he might not even have been killed if the 13 great emperors joined forces to besiege him for 3 days and 3 nights straight. On top of that, Jian Wushuang's current power was on an entirely different level. Jian Wushuang continuously wielded Blood Mountain Sword on the battlefield with billowing force. The sword principle that he performed had 4 moves. It was the 4 moves in Shen Luo sword principle. However, the 4 moves were like one. It was simply perfect. The 13 great emperor performed various powerful attacks. Jian Wushuang would block it if he could. If he couldn't, he would resist it by using his divine body directly. The sword principle that he performed was shocking. Be careful. Don't fight head-on with him. He is too powerful. This be *starred. I am a great emperor and I was severely injured by one stroke of his when I fought him head-on. He is every more powerful than Ling Zong. Hurry up and dodge. There were angry roars and shrill screams on the battlefield. The ones who made the noises were naturally the 13 great emperors from 3 Emperors' World. They fought with their all. They besieged Jian Wushuang just like they had done 30 years ago. However, they had realized that the situation was entirely different from 30 years ago. 30 years ago, Jian Wushuang was suppressed. He was only on the defensive and taking hits. He had survived for so long only because of his defensive power. But then, although he was still suppressed, Jian Wushuang had the power to counterattack. Every time he fought back, the sword principle was ridiculously powerful. Besides Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man who could barely block it, the other great emperors would be severely injured if they were to take the hit alone. Hence, from the beginning of the fight until then, it was less than 10 breaths time, but there were 2 people who were severely injured among the 13 great emperors. Their fighting power was badly damaged. On the contrary, Jian Wushuang was still perfectly intact and he was energetic. His fighting power was terrifying too. The great emperors began to panic. In the void far from the battlefield, the cultivators in early and middle stage chaotic realm on Imperial Peak were astonished by the fight. They were watching the battle in disbelief. Isn't that the person who was killed by the great emperors back then? Yeah, it's him. He intentionally disguised himself as an ordinary cultivator in early stage chaotic realm and entered Imperial Peak back then. But he died 30 years back. Now, not only is he not dead, but he has also become stronger. He is ridiculously powerful. The 13 great emperors in Peak Chaotic Realm joined forces but couldn't capture him. On top of that, they were injured by him in such a short time span. His power? Many of them gasped in admiration. Among the crowd, the most astonished person was Lin Tianhao. He looked at Jian Wushuang, who was invincible like a demon, and he shivered in fear. Monster. This show is simply a monster, Lin Tianhao muttered. In the middle of the battlefield. Bang. Jian Wushuang's sword that brought about boundless power slashed at a great emperor's divine weapon again. The great emperor's body quivered and he spat a mouthful of blood. Then he quickly fell down. Another great emperor was severely injured by Jian Wushuang again. Haha, such a hearty fight. Jian Wushuang's hysterical laughter spread. In the 2 previous fights I was suppressed and hit. I felt so aggrieved. Now I can finally teach you a lesson and vent my anger. Jian Wushuang felt great. It was true that he had been dogged by these great emperors relying on his advantage of having near immortality during the last 2 fights. In other words, he was plainly being hit. He had been full of misery during the last 2 fights. He naturally felt aggrieved. However, he wasn't powerful enough. He had no choice but to be beaten up. Now it was different. During the fight, although he was still mainly taking hits, at least he could counterattack. On top of that, he had injured a few of them. If it continued, he wouldn't die and the great emperors in front of him would be injured by him one by one. To be able to do that, Jian Wushuang considered taking revenge. I vented my anger and taught you a lesson. I shall not fool around with you anymore. Jian Wushuang sneered. He suddenly plunged to the front. Want to leave? The surrounding great emperors instantly responded when they saw Jian Wushuang's actions. Stop him. We absolutely can't let him escape. Ling Zong roared. The great emperors from Three Emperors' World looked glum and charged at Jian Wushuang madly. Jian Wushuang smirked in disdain at the sight. 30 years ago you could have stopped me. But now, no one can stop me if I want to leave. Chapter 2047 Take action personally. I want to leave and no one can stop me, Jian Wushuang said with absolute confidence. His confidence wasn't only because his current power could make him fearless under the besiegement of the 13 great emperors, but more importantly because the Emperor Supreme Rock had shattered. Not only was the Emperor Supreme Rock the source of energy that drove the Dark Millstone, it was also the main factor of the great formation surrounding Imperial Peak and Imperial City. Once the Emperor Supreme Rock shattered, the great formation in Imperial Peak and Imperial City would simply be nothing. Without the surrounding great formation, the 13 great emperors wanted him to stay? That was simply a joke. Go away. Jian Wushuang let out an angry roar. His voice contained boundless power as though the universe was angry. There were originally 4 great emperors in front of him. However, when they saw that Jian Wushuang had filled the air with terrifying sword intention, they pounced forward. Step back. Hurry up and retreat. The 4 great emperors retreated without hesitation. Even when 4 great emperors joined forces, they wouldn't have the courage to stop Jian Wushuang. Rubbish. Ling Zong, who was following Jian Wushuang, saw it and he cursed. However, he was sure that even if the 4 great emperors were to block Jian Wushuang, they would only be beaten back by Jian Wushuang in an instant. Jian Wushuang was raging with anger. He plunged out of Imperial City directly. The 13 great emperors followed Jian Wushuang, but they were merely following him. After a short while, Jian Wushuang escaped from Imperial Peak and left Imperial City. He continued to plunge into the boundless, vast region in Three Emperors' World. The 13 great emperors could do nothing about him. Ling Zong. The tall and sturdy middle-aged man flying alongside with Ling Zong looked distressed. Jian Wushuang is much stronger than 30 years ago. We can't stop him, report to the higher-ups. Ling Zong's body quivered. His eyebrows were tightly knitted. Even though he was unwilling to yield, he knew that whatever the tall and sturdy middle-aged man said was true. Report then. Ling Zong sighed and took out a token to send a message. In the dark void, the 3 overlords sat there. Then the 3 of their faces grew grave. They were in the Dark Millstone. The 3 of them were controlling the Dark Millstone. But as the Emperor Supreme Rock shattered and the Dark Millstone lost its energy source, it completely stopped. If they couldn't find another huge Emperor Supreme Rock, they wouldn't make the Dark Millstone move again. Jian Wushuang didn't die? The brawny Demon King let out an earth-shaking roar. He stared and said, that bunch of rubbish. What did they do 30 years ago? Didn't they say that they killed Jian Wushuang? Why is he still living well right now? He even broke the Emperor Supreme Rock. He destroyed the Emperor Supreme Rock and he left Imperial Peak and Imperial City openly? Ling Zong and the other 12 in Peak Chaotic Realm couldn't stop him, but they have to get help from us? Rubbish. A bunch of rubbish. Demon King cursed and roared. The blurry blood man next to him gave out a chilly aura. We put in so much time and effort in building the Dark Millstone, but Jian Wushuang ruined it. Our hard work is in vain. Jian Wushuang deserves to die. Demon King and the blurry blood man harbored great hatred against Jian Wushuang. Only Lung Rux's eyes were twinkling with a different emotion. She kept quiet for a while before she spoke. As it already happened, it's too late for us to complain. Let's think about what we should do next. As the Dark Millstone stopped, Sanctuary Alliance will definitely take action. We'd better get ready. Demon King nodded in agreement and he calmed down. How about this? The 2 of you stay here and deal with Sanctuary Alliance. As for Jian Wushuang, I'll take care of him personally. I'd like to see how powerful is this Jian Suhuang. Why the 13 great emperors from Three Emperors' World could do nothing about him. Then, Demon King didn't care about Lung Ruxue and the blurry blood man's respawn but plunged to Three Emperors' World immediately. The blurry blood man didn't bother much, but Lung Rux's eyes dilated in shock. She originally intended to fight against Jianghu but Demon King took the initiative and went ahead. She naturally didn't speak. Jianghu, oh Jianghu. You didn't 30 years ago under that kind of situation. You are impressive. Seems like I really belittled you. Lung Rushua muttered, but she smirked in a malicious smile. Three Emperors' world was in complete chaos. In the palace in the nearby void around the Dark Millstone, the great emperors who were the higher-ups of Sanctuary Alliance gathered there. Emperor Bai was naturally the leader. The great emperors from Sanctuary Alliance were gathered by Emperor Bai in a sudden. Most of them attended in their consciousness incarnation. Then all of them looked confused as they didn't know why Emperor Bai suddenly gathered them. When everyone was there, Emperor Bai spoke and looked around. I have something to tell all of you. The Emperor Supreme rock shattered. The Dark Millstone stopped. What? A tossed stone raised 1,000 ripples. The surrounding great emperors looked astonished. Ever since 30 years ago when they found out that the 4 members troop that they sent fell into the enemy's trap and both Jianghu and Great Emperor Ji Luo died, they didn't have any hope about destroying the Emperor Supreme rock. On the contrary, they focused all their effort on gathering experts and bringing the powerful ones in eternal chaotic world. However, they had yet to fully prepare after 30 years, but Emperor Bai told them that the Emperor Supreme rock was shattered and the Dark Millstone had stopped. They were in disbelief at first when they heard the news. But they finally confirmed when they checked the Dark Millstone. The Dark Millstone isn't moving anymore. It really stopped. Haha, it really stopped. The great emperors were thrilled in happiness. Some even shed tears of joy. The Dark Millstone was a really big threat against eternal chaotic world. If it continued to spin, the entire eternal chaotic world would vanish into thin air and it wouldn't take long for it to happen. Hence, they had been very anxious and they had been thinking of ways for the Dark Millstone to stop. They already put in a lot of hard work to make it happen. Then, when they found out that the Dark Millstone finally stopped, how could they not feel surprised? Of course, they were also confused when they were surprised. Chapter 2048 Demon King Chenyu? Mr. Emperor Bai, what's going on? Yes, who destroyed the Emperor Supreme rock? Who would be so capable as to be able to destroy the Emperor Supreme rock in Three Emperors' world's lair? The confused and curious gazes fixed upon Emperor Bai. The one who destroyed the Emperor Supreme rock was Jianwu Shuang, Emperor Bai replied. Jianwu Shuang? How is that possible? Didn't Jianwu Shuang die? How could he destroy the Emperor Supreme rock? He didn't die. The great emperors were shocked and they expressed their disbelief. Emperor Bai explained, Jianwu Shuang didn't die. As for the reason and process, it is inconvenient for me to tell you. In short, Jianwu Shuang destroyed the Emperor Supreme rock and the Dark Millstone stopped because of that. Jianwu Shuang is in the Three Emperors world and he is being chased after by a large bunch of experts from Three Emperors world. Hence, Sanctuary Alliance has to send experts in to take him on immediately. Sword Emperor destroyed the Emperor Supreme rock. In short, he saved the entire eternal chaotic world. Now that he is being chased after, we of course have to go and get him. Ancestor Tianchen was the first to reply. It's an obligation we won't shirk. We have to bring Jianwu Shuang back. The other great emperors stood up one after another. Although some of the great emperors had borne grudges against Jianwu Shuang before, they would cast their personal resentment aside before their enemies. Jianwu Shuang had performed extraordinary deeds. As he was in danger, they of course had to go all out to save him. I already got in touch with Jianwu Shuang through Emperor Jiu Qiao's doppelganger. He will come to this region at his fastest speed. Emperor Bai waved and a huge constellation map appeared in the void in front of them. Emperor Jiu Qiao drew the constellation map. It was the result of Emperor Jiu Qiao being in hiding in the Three Emperors world for 30 years. All god mansions and regions in Three Emperors world were recorded on the constellation map. Emperor Bai pointed at the region called Bronze Heart. The Bronze Heart region was located at the border of Three Emperors world. Then the Dark Millstone stopped and the surrounding Great Formation had already stopped spinning. The higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance could barge into Three Emperors world directly. They could pierce the outer layer of the pavilion and reached Bronze Heart region easily. Depart immediately. Rush there at your fastest speed, Emperor Bai commanded. Understood. The surrounding great emperors nodded simultaneously. Mr. Emperor Bai, how about you? Are you going personally? Red Dragon King suddenly looked at Emperor Bai. I have a more important task to do, Emperor Bai replied. The great emperors didn't pursue further. Then the original body of all great emperors gathered at their fastest speeds. Then they departed to Three Emperors world. Emperor Bai watched the great emperors leave and his eyes were glistening in a strange way. In Three Emperors World. Jian Wushuang rushed out of Imperial City and continued to plunge forward. He had been flying for more than half a day and he had passed many regions. Sword Emperor, Emperor Bai told me to inform you that everything is going according to plan. Emperor Jiu Qiao sent a message over. Great, Jian Wushuang smiled and he looked behind him. The total of 13 great emperors were following Ling Zong and the tall and sturdy middle-aged man's lead, continuing to chase after him closely. These guys are so persistent. Jian Wushuang smiled. The 13 great emperors wouldn't be a threat to him. However, Jian Wushuang knew that the 13 great emperors definitely had another purpose in following behind him when they knew they could do nothing about him. As expected, just as Jian Wushuang crossed into another region, dong, 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 there were heavy footsteps from the void in front. The footsteps were obviously from someone stomping on the void and rushing over. The power of every single step was extremely powerful. Jian Wushuang immediately lifted his head and realized that there was a 2-meter-tall brawny man with bronze skin that appeared at the end of his sight. The brawny man was muscular and had a mustache and beard. His hair was all over the place too. He looked just like a savage man. As the savage man plunged over from the void in front, every footstep shattered boundless void below his feet. There was a terrifying rage that spread from him. Even Jian Wushuang was shocked when he felt the rage approaching him. This person. Jian Wushuang stared at the savage man who was getting closer. His gut feeling told him that the person in front of him was very scary. He was far scarier than the 13 great emperors behind him combined. However, the 13 great emperors behind Jian Wushuang were thrilled when they saw him. It's Demon King. Mr. Demon King has come. Haha, Mr. Demon came personally. Jian Wushuang will be dead. Mr. Demon King. How long has it been since we've seen him descend personally? The great emperors looked at the savage man with boundless enthusiasm and worship. The same applied to Ling Zong. Are you Jian Wushuang? The savage man spoke in a loud and bright voice. He stopped right in front of Jian Wushuang and looked down at Jian Wushuang with his cold gaze. His boundless might pressed onto Jian Wushuang at the first instant. Who are you? Jian Wushuang's face was solemn as he stared at the savage man in front. I am Chen Yu. You can also call me Demon King Chen Yu, the savage man said coldly. Jian Wushuang, I have heard things about you. I have to admit that you are truly a top genius. I'm afraid there aren't many who have greater talent than you from the era I'm from. But it's a pity that you and I are not on the same side. So, I can only let you die. Demon King Chen Yu's voice reverberated through the universe. As Demon King Chen Yu spoke, he moved. There was a great distance to get to Jian Wushuang, but Demon King took a huge stride and he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. At the same time, he clenched his hand and a huge fist instantly broke the air. It brought about a boundless demonic cloud and broke everything in front of Jian Wushuang. Then it slashed at Jian Wushuang's face. So fast. There was a flash of shock in Jian Wushuang's eyes, but he instantly recovered. Humph. Jian Wushuang humphed coldly and wielded his sword. There was a unique sword intention that soared up. Then Jian Wushuang turned into a huge whirlpool that swallowed everything. Shen Luo Sword Principle Mixed Element Spirit. Bang. There was a loud bang. The huge fist collided with Jian Wushuang's sword light brutally. A terrifying power suddenly exploded. Chapter 2049 Demon King's Power. At the very moment when both parties collided, Jian Wushuang could distinctly feel an unprecedented power pounding at him madly. Even if Jian Wushuang performed Mixed Element Spirit with his all, he wouldn't be able to resist the power. There would still be parts of the power that would transmit to Jian Wushuang's divine body through his hands. Jian Wushuang's divine power was extremely fierce, but he had suffered some damage. Although his divine body had instantly recovered with the operation of divine power, Demon King Chen Yu's punch did cause damage to his divine body. On top of that, Demon King Chen Yu's fist didn't hit his body but merely collided with his sword principle. The impact injured his divine body. Such power would absolutely be a notch stronger than when Jian Wushuang exploded his full power. It seems that I belittled Three Emperors World. The Three Emperors World has even scarier great emperors. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. His figure quivered, he stood steadily in the void. Then he suddenly turned illusionary. He was just like a spirit. Jian Wushuang appeared next to Demon King Chen Yu and there was a sharp gleam from Blood Mountain Sword. The chilly gleam surged and there was a drop of blood faintly condensing on the tip of the blade. Shen Luo Sword Principle, the move that focused on instant explosion and piercing, the name of the move was Extreme Blood. Such a joke. Demon King Chen Yu smirked in disdain. Then he waved and a large dark cloud came over. The cold sword light that Jian Wushuang had performed was smashed by a large demonic region before it appeared before Demon King Chenyu. The power was diminished tremendously and in the end the entire stroke shattered. To be able to take a punch of mine head-on, not too shabby. But in the end you still have to die. Demon King Chenyu's demonic power was impressive. Just as he spoke, his originally 2-meter-tall figure suddenly increased and became 10 zhang tall. His skin turned into an ancient bronze color and he had a total of 8 arms that extended outwards. The 8 arms were holding various weapons. There was a broadsword, a huge club, a bronze mirror, a large seal. In between Demon King Chenyu's eyebrows, the third eye suddenly opened and it was hanging vertically. There was a crimson glow to it and it could charm anyone. Die. Demon King Chenyu roared and his 8 arms moved at the same time. He instantly came before Jian Wushuang and the various divine weapons swept down. The broadsword tainted the surrounding void with blood and the broadsword continuously magnified and covered the sky. It formed overlapping sword shadows and they instantly slashed. The black club was brutal. It turned into a bolt of black lightning and suddenly struck. The bronze mirror gave out a purple ray of light. The purple light contained an extermination aura and it charged at Jian Wushuang. The seal was originally an ordinary seal. As the yellowish-brown power filled the air, the seal turned into a huge mountain and crushed down on Jian Wushuang. The 8 various divine weapons in Demon King Chenyu's hands were performing different tricks. Their powers were all terrifying. Looking at the intense attack, Jian Wushuang was shocked but not fearful. Jian Wushuang's divine body grew tremendously too. Then he had 9 heads and 18 arms that popped up instantly. All 18 arms were holding swords. Come on! He roared. Jian Wushuang and Demon King Chen fought fiercely. Even though Jian Wushuang had 18 arms and his opponent only had 8, so he looked like he had the upper hand. But in actual fact, the 18 arms increased Jian Wushuang power to a limit. However, Demon King Chenyu's was different. His 8 arms wielded various types of divine weapons and could perform the power of the divine weapon flawlessly and fiercely. Bang, bang, bang. There were continuous loud bangs and the entire universe was in a divine power storm. There was a terrifying power and aura that constantly spread, which caused the 13 great emperors who were watching near the battlefield to be fearful. There was no doubt that Jian Wushuang's power was beyond Ling Zong's or any one of the 13 great emperors. Then Demon King Chenyu, who was fighting against him, was even scarier. He was one of the 3 emperors that 3 emperors worshipped. Oh! There was another roar. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang looked solemn. This person, he is so powerful. He is at least a dozen times stronger than Ling Zong. He is much stronger than me too. I am suppressed when I fight against him? Jian Wushuang was in disbelief. After he had broken through and gotten to the second stage, his power had increased tremendously. Even when the 13 great emperors joined forces, he could be fearless and he could even injure them. With his power, he thought that besides Emperor Bai, Emperor 13 and those ancient old monsters who were in a deep sleep and yet to wake up, there couldn't be anyone who could be his match in eternal chaotic world. However, Demon King Chenyu before him was stronger than him. Much stronger than him. There's such a powerful expert in 3 emperors' world? Jian Wushuang muttered and he had already thought of retreating. He knew that his power wasn't as strong as his opponents and there were 13 great emperors waiting at the side. Jian Wushuang wouldn't continue to fight against Demon King Chenyu stupidly. There was a billowing divine power with an ancient tribe bloodline power that exploded from Jian Wushuang. Behind Jian Wushuang, there were lofty ancient tribe shadows. There seemed to be more than 100 or 1,000 shadows. Ancient god unique skill, universal laws. Jian Wushuang slapped and reincarnation palm flew forward. The ancient god shadows behind him followed his actions and slapped their palms forward. Every palm contained boundless power. The palms moved to bury Demon King Chenyu simultaneously. As for Jian Wushuang, he retreated as the universal laws performed. Go away. Demon King Chenyu's power increased and the 8 arms waved continuously to shatter the palms moving toward him. At the same time he saw Jian Wushuang retreating. You can't escape. Demon King Chenyu was soaring with murderous intention. Just as he roared, one of his 8 arms clenched a jade ruler. The jade ruler merged with the universe and there was yellow sand that instantly swept out. The boundless sand swept out in madness. It instantly formed a huge yellow sand prison that covered the universe. It naturally covered Jian Wushuang too. Chapter 2050 Yellow Sand Realm. Demon King Chenyu is pretty impressive. Jian Wushuang's face grew glum as he looked at the surrounding yellow sand realm. He could feel how sturdy the Yellow Sand Realm was. Within the Yellow Sand Realm, an ordinary Great Emperor or even a Great Emperor that was on Ling Zong level might not stand a chance to escape. However, Jian Wushuang was different. You want to make me stay with that kind of trick? You're dreaming. Jian Wushuang roared. He waved his 18 arms at the same time and slashed at the Yellow Sand Realm. It was a round of brutal hits. The fierce sword lights slashed at the Yellow Sand Realm and it began to quiver vigorously. However, it wasn't damaged. Jian Wushuang didn't give up but instantly began his second round of attacks. Boy die. Just as Jian Wushuang attacked the Yellow Sand Realm crazily, Demon King Chenyu appeared behind him and there was a fierce attack that instantly descended. Jian Wushuang had no choice but to block Demon King's attack while he figured out a way to break the Yellow Sand Realm. Their fight was extremely fierce. Outside the Yellow Sand Realm, Ling Zong and the other 13 Great Emperors were watching. They could see the huge Yellow Sand Realm in front of them. However, they didn't know what was happening within the Yellow Sand Realm. They couldn't see with their naked eyes, nor could they probe with their soul power. They could only hear the terrifying roars and clanging noises from the Yellow Sand Realm that struck fear into them. The roaring continued for dozens of breaths of time. Finally, there was another loud bang. There was a huge hole that tore open on the Yellow Sand Realm. Jian Wushuang plunged out of the hole and leaped. Demon King Chenyu looked angry and he reined back Yellow Sand Realm as Jade Ruler. He went to pursue Jian Wushuang again. As Demon King Chenyu was chasing after him, he commanded, "Immediately arrange for people to set up in front to stop Jian Wushuang. Otherwise, we'll likely lose him." Demon King Chenyu was offended when he gave that command. He was taking care of Jian Wushuang personally. Since he was Jian Wushuang personally, he was determined to win. However, after the vigorous fight in the Yellow Sand Realm, Demon King Chenyu wouldn't be able to kill Jian Wushuang by himself. This boy's defense is too strong. Demon King Chenyu clenched his hands and he was still thinking of the scene that had happened in the Yellow Sand Realm. In the Yellow Sand Realm, Jian Wushuang was fighting with him while he was thinking of a way to break the Yellow Sand Realm in the beginning. But not long after, Jian Wushuang seemed to see how sturdy the Yellow Sand Realm was and he knew that he would need a long time to break the realm if he continued to fight. Hence, he made an insane decision which was to ignore Demon King Chenye's attack. He didn't bother about Demon King Chenye's brutal attacks and let them hit his divine body. Jian Wushuang focused on the Yellow Sand Realm directly. After a few rounds of attack, he finally broke a hole in the Yellow Sand Realm. As he was trying to break into the Yellow Sand Realm, he took almost 100 of Demon King Chenye's attacks. Based on Demon King Chenye's terrifying power, if one hit of his were to land on the divine body of an ordinary Great Emperor, those who had weaker defense powers would have been dead. Even those who were stronger wouldn't survive after 2 to 3 hits. However, Jian Wushuang had taken almost 100 of Demon King Chenye's hits. Just how insane was his defense power? With Jian Wushuang's defense power, as long as he wasn't stupid enough to fight vigorously with Demon King Chenyu, he could totally escape. Hence, Demon King Chenyu commanded the Great Emperors and 3 Emperors' world to stop Jian Wushuang at the front. As long as they trapped Jian Wushuang and left him no chance to escape, no matter how powerful his defensive power was, he would reach his limit. By then it would be Jian Wushuang's death. Jian Wushuang looked like he was still at his peak and his aura wasn't weakened at all. On top of that, his running speed was equally shocking. But he looked extremely solemn. Demon King Chenye's attack power is so strong, Jian Wushuang muttered. He couldn't help but steal a glance at Demon King Chenyu behind him. After he reached the second stage, his divine power had increased tremendously again. In addition to 5 gem armor, his defense power was terrifyingly powerful. If it was an ordinary Great Emperor or an extremely powerful Great Emperor like Ling Zong who hit him, it would just feel like a scratch. He wouldn't care much about it. Even if there were 100 attacks, he could be at ease. However, Demon King Chenye's 100 attacks in the Yellow Sand region severely injured his divine body. Although his severely injured divine body could be quickly recovered with his divine power. Jian Wushuang's divine power had expanded tremendously. During the time in the Yellow Sand Realm, Jian Wushuang's divine power had gone by 30%. If a similar situation were to happen a few more times, he was afraid that he couldn't take it. However, luckily he escaped from the Yellow Sand Realm. Then Demon King Chenyu was only following behind him. Even if he caught up with him, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Now, I only need to figure out a way to get to the border of 3 Emperors' world and meet up with the experts of Sanctuary Alliance, Jian Wushuang muttered, and there was a strange gleam twinkling in his eyes. He plunged at a high speed. Judging from his travel direction, he was obviously charging at Bronze Heart region. Bronze Heart region was a region closest to the border in Three Emperors world. Emperor Bai commanded the Great Emperors and Sanctuary Alliance to rush to Bronze Heart region to meet with Jianghu. Then, in the vast void in Bronze Heart region, there was a total of 7 figures standing side by side. The 7 people's auras were fierce. They were all Great Emperors, and they weren't Great Emperors from Sanctuary Alliance but from Three Emperors world. The 7 Great Emperors from Three Emperors world floated solemnly as they looked at the sky afar. They were obviously for something. They were naturally waiting for Jianghu's arrival. However, Jianghu was still quite far away from Bronze Heart region. Even the Great Emperors from Sanctuary Alliance had just departed not long ago. They probably had yet to pass through the outer layer of the Dark Millstone to enter Three Emperor world, let alone to get to Jianghu in Bronze Heart region. However, Three Emperors world had assigned a total of 7 Great Emperors to wait there. The 7 of them who knew battle formations. Chapter 2051 Pick up. If I'm not mistaken, Jianghu will arrive in Bronze Heart region in no time. By then, the 7 of us will apply battle formation and join forces with Mr. Demon King to hem him in. Then kill him, a lady in a white robe who stood among the 7 Great Emperors said coldly. The battle formation that the 7 of us will form is best at trapping people. As long as Jianghu comes to Bronze Heart region, no doubt, he will die. Yes, he will die, the other few Great Emperors said. They were obviously confident about their battle formation. They were waiting patiently too. The time continued to fly past. In the vast void in Three Emperors world, Jianghu continued to plunge forward. The direction in which he was flying led to Bronze Heart region. Demon King Chen and the other Great Emperors saw, and they continued to follow closely behind him. Demon King Chen smirked in his heart when he saw the direction Jianghu was plunging in. Jianghu, even though you have impressive skills, your final outcome is death. You can't escape Three Emperors world. Demon King Chen knew that there were 7 Great Emperors waiting at Bronze Heart region. When Jianghu got there, he would work together with the formation of the 7 Great Emperors to take down Jianghu. That was the plan in his head. However, just as Jianghu passed another region, there were less than 3 regions to reach the Bronze Heart region. Swoosh! Jianghu suddenly plunged in another direction. He flew towards another void. What? Demon King Chen suddenly grew glum. From what he saw, Jianghu should have continued to rush to the Bronze Heart region. He definitely has to go there. Emperor Bai in Sanctuary Alliance had already commanded the experts in Sanctuary Alliance to pick Jianghu up from Bronze Heart region. Emperor Bai gave a command and the Great Emperor in Sanctuary Alliance had already departed. They were really rushing to Bronze Heart region. Of course, Jianghu has to go there too. Did he do that to confuse me? Demon King Chen creased his eyebrows and said. It was merely his suspicion, but it was a feasible suspicion. Jianghu following actions cleared up his suspicion entirely. Because after Jianghu passed through another region, he continued to plunge to a region further away from Bronze Heart region. D***. This boy didn't intend to go to the Bronze Heart region at all. Demon King Chen instantly roared in anger. At the same time he sent a message to question him. What's going on? Didn't you say the Great Emperors in Sanctuary Alliance are going to pick him up from Bronze Heart region? Why doesn't this boy look like he is going to Bronze Heart region? However, on the other side of the communication token, the reply was simple and straightforward. He said that it was really Emperor Bai's command and the Great Emperors in Sanctuary Alliance were reaching Bronze Heart region. In other words, Emperor Bai's command was true and the fact that Great Emperors in Sanctuary Alliance were going to pick up Jianghu was true also. However, Jianghu going to Bronze Heart region was fake. T. Demon King Chen's heart skipped a beat and he instantly understood. This boy never intended to head to Bronze Heart region. Emperor Bai sent the Great Emperors in Sanctuary Alliance to Bronze Heart region to confuse us. They definitely found out that our spy is among the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. Hence they beat us at our own game. They used our spy to give us a piece of false information. We were fooled. Demon King Chen's face grew grave. There was no doubt that they had been schemed against by Jianghu and Emperor Bai. Jianghu had never thought of going to Bronze Heart region. He had been running in the direction of the Bronze Heart region because he was pretending. Now Jianghu had already stepped foot in the border region of Three Emperors world. In this region there were 2 figures waiting for Jianghu. The 2 people were Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiuqiao. The 2 of them who stood in the void saw Jianghu appear at the end of their sights and they looked thrilled. Haha, Jianghu. Sword Emperor. The two great emperors immediately greeted Jian Wushuang. Abysmal Saint Master, Emperor Jiao, long time no see. Jian Wushuang laughed heartily and the three of them quickly gathered. Jian Wushuang also stopped running away. As he was there, it was not necessary for him to escape anymore. Oh. Demon King Chen, yes, demonic might spread, and he appeared not far from Jian Wushuang, and he stopped too. Then, the total of 13 great emperors who had followed the lead of Ling Zong. They followed behind since Imperial Peak. Demon King Chen Yu and the 13 green emperors were staring at Jian Wushuang. It was as though they were going to eat Jian Wushuang alive. Jian Wushuang, you are really skillful. Since you escaped Imperial City, you have been running in the direction to Bronze Heart region. You intentionally made us think that you were running to Bronze Heart region, but in the end you came to this region? Demon King Chen Yes' voice was cold. Humph, I knew the movements of Sanctuary Alliance so well. Why would I run to Bronze Heart region and fall into your trap again? Jian Wushuang sneered. Demon King Chen Yu, you must think I'm stupid. But I am certain that there's really a double agent among the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance because of this. Demon King Chen Yes' face grew grave, but he wasn't surprised. Jian Wushuang did it on purpose. He had obviously made use of the double agent. You are not stupid, but you are too proud of yourself. You should have left Three Emperors' world without hesitation, but you stopped. You gave me another chance to kill you. Demon King Chen Yes' gaze was cold, and the jade ruler in his hand shined with a bright light again. The jade ruler was one of his very impressive treasures. It could turn into a sturdy yellow sand realm. However, as the yellow sand realm had been broken once, it would need some time to be repaired and used again. Now, after another round of chasing, the yellow sand realm had been repaired. He could totally perform it again. Hence, he naturally had another chance to kill Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang flashed a malicious smile when he heard what Demon King Chen Yu said. Demon King Chen Yu, I think you misunderstood something. Now the person who should run isn't me. Should be you. Demon King Chen Yu was stunned. The next moment, at the end of the void, there was a figure in a gray robe that appeared and was slowly walking over. He had white hair and white eyes. Even his skin was terrifyingly fair. He was a man, but his beautiful face would put all the women in Eternal Chaotic World to shame. His charming appearance with his fair skin made him look aloof. However, his arrival made Demon King Chen Yes' eyes dilate in shock. Emperor Bai. Chapter 2052 Emperor Bai came. The person who was walking over was Emperor Bai. He walked over leisurely and his footsteps were slow. However, his footsteps in the void were ringing like a heavy drumroll in Demon King Chen Yes and the other great emperors' heads. 1 step, 2 steps. Demon King Chen Yu looked unprecedentedly solemn. Emperor Bai was a legend in Eternal Chaotic World. He was also widely known as the strongest one. In the beginning, Demon King Chen Yu had even turned his nose up at Emperor Bai. Because he had never fought with Emperor Bai, had never thought he would be weaker than Emperor Bai. Not long ago, he had heard from Leng Ruxue that Emperor Bai had injured Lord Fan badly. Hence he couldn't help but have scruples. Now Emperor Bai had appeared before him. Mr. Emperor Bai. Jian Wushuang, Abysmal Saint Master, Emperor Jiao bowed to Emperor Bai. They weren't surprised by Emperor Bai's arrival because it was originally within Jian Wushuang's plan. Jian Wushuang wanted Emperor Bai to command the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance to pick him up from Bronze Heart region so that it would mislead the experts in Three Emperors' world. At the same time, Emperor Bai had to come to this region himself. Emperor Bai was the person who was truly taking Jian Wushuang. Emperor Bai nodded, but his eyes were fixed upon Demon King Chen Yu. Such demonic might. You should be the one from Acheron Palace, Demon King Chen Yu. Am I right? You know me? Demon King Chen Yu stared at Emperor Bai. Of course, Emperor Bai smiled faintly. I know all 3 experts that were left back then. Among the 3 of you, only Lord Fan fought with me. You will be second. I wonder how your power is compared to Lord Fan. There's only one way to find out. Demon King Chen Yu was outraged. He moved and took the initiative to pounce on Emperor Bai. On the way, the divine weapons in his 8 arms suddenly swept out fiercely. His terrifying might reached its limit. Emperor Bai remained composed at the sight. However, there was a huge golden shadow that soared up behind him immediately. The golden shadow was a golden emperor. He was 99,000 zhang tall and 3,000 zhang broad. His golden eyes looked smug. He looked down as though everything living thing in the universe should yield to him. Emperor Bai fought too. His slender arms instantly raised his fists. Then there was a condensation of explosive power. Open. A word was uttered. The golden shadow that was 99 zhang tall behind Emperor Bai clenched its right hand too and condensed boundless force. As Emperor Bai punched, rumble. The void in front immediately shattered. It swept away everything. It was as though nothing, not even the universe and the space-time, could take the punch. The terrifying punch collided with the 8 divine powers that Demon King Chen wielded. Bang! There was suddenly a loud bang that spread. In the middle of the battlefield, the crimson broadsword that tainted the universe red fell to the side. The originally fierce club flew to the side. The huge mountain that was transformed by the seal cracked from the middle and collapsed. Every divine weapon that brought about powerful attacks dissolved under the punch. Even Demon King Chen himself took a few steps back. But then Emperor Bai, standing in front of the 99 zhang tall golden shadow, took a stride forward. As he took the stride, rumble. The surrounding space-time pressed at Demon King Chen. Demon King Chen was only fighting against Emperor Bai alone. However, he felt like he was fighting against the entire universe. There was a large amount of golden light that burst out and formed a golden ocean of divine power. In the golden ocean of divine power, Emperor Bai attacked continuously. Bang, 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 bang. There were loud bangs and every single one would strike fear in any great emperors. It constantly resounded from the core of the golden ocean of divine power. Jianghu stood outside the golden ocean of divine power, but even he could feel the billowing movement. He couldn't help but feel astonished. However, the battle only took place for a short while. Swoosh! There was a figure that burst out from the golden ocean of divine power. The figure belonged to Demon King Chen. The difference from before was that Demon King Chen looked pale now. He had 8 arms but 2 of them were broken. His aura was obviously much weaker than before too. Humph! A cold humph reverberated in the universe. The golden ocean of divine power slowly dispersed and the scene within was slowly exposed. Emperor Bai stood there perfectly intact. The 99,000 zhang tall shadow was still there. His aura grew even more terrifying. However, he looked at Demon King Chen in anger and disappointment. Demon King Chen, at first I thought that if you were one of the 3 who survived, you should be on par with Lord Fin. Even if you were not much stronger than Lord Fin, you shouldn't be much weaker. However, the facts show otherwise. You are far behind Lord Fin. Emperor Bai's cold roar reverberated through the universe. When I fought Lord Fin, at least I had to take out all I had to defeat him or to even severely injure him. But you don't even make me go all out. Go away. Emperor Bai waved and the wave contained boundless might. Demon King Chen stood there. He heard Emperor Bai's remark and his face was red and white from embarrassment and anger. The fire in him ignited too. However, no matter how angry he felt, he knew that he wasn't Emperor Bai's match. Hence, he would merely be humiliating himself if he were to continue the fight. Emperor Bai, I lost today. But don't be too happy about it. In no time I will take revenge. When I do, I will bury you along with eternal chaotic world. Demon King Chen bellowed and turned and plunged into the far-off void without turning back. Even Demon King Chen was suppressed and he could only leave. Why would the 13 great emperors who could do nothing to Jianghu stay back? They immediately left too. In the vast void, there was only Emperor Bai Jianghu, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao. Emperor Bai watched Demon King Chen as he left but there was a strange light shimmering in his eyes. He muttered, "The 3 experts that survived, I fought with Lord Fun and Demon King Chen fought with me. Both of them lost to me. There is only Kaiser Blood who was the strongest." Kaiser Blood. I wonder when he'll get a chance to fight with him. I hope that his power is stronger than Lord Fen's and Demon King Chen. Yes. Had better not disappoint me. Chapter 2053 left 3 Emperors World. Demon King Chen and the others left. Jianghu Shuang's danger naturally was resolved. Then, the 4 of them plunged out of 3 Emperors World. In eternal chaotic world, in the vast, dark void, the dark millstone that was a few times bigger than a holy kingdom in size had already stopped spinning. In an unnoticeable corner of the dark millstone, there were a few figures that pushed through layers of prohibitions and came out. Haha, we're out. We are finally out. Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao looked at the surrounding dark void and they looked overjoyed. Jianghu Shuang was filled with excitement too. Over the years they had been wandering in 3 Emperors World. In 3 Emperors World's land they had to be cautious and alert at all times. Any careless mistake and they would be doomed forever. They had finally returned to the eternal chaotic world. As they returned they were the masters and they could finally relax. The Emperor Supreme Rock was destroyed and the dark millstone has been stopped entirely. Our mission was a complete success, Abysmal Saint Master said in surprise. Thanks to Sword Emperor. If it wasn't him, the few of us might not even have been able to destroy the Emperor's supreme rock. Emperor Jiu Qiao smiled. Jian Wushuang shrugged and let out a breath of relief. It's a pity that Ji Luo won't be able to walk out of Three Emperors' world with us. Otherwise, our mission could have been considered perfect. Hearing Great Emperor Ji Luo's name, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao became quiet. Among the four-member expert troop, the three of them had survived, but Great Emperor Ji Luo would forever stay in Three Emperors' world. Ji Luo died for Sanctuary Alliance. Sanctuary Alliance and also the entire eternal chaotic world won't forget about her, Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang, Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao nodded. This aside, Mr. Emperor Bai, how's the situation at Bronze Heart region? Jian Wushuang asked. Just as we thought, Three Emperors' world has sent experts to wait for your arrival there. Earlier they fought with our great emperors from Sanctuary Alliance, but I sent them a message asking them to return not long after they started fighting. I reckon they will leave Three Emperors' world soon too, Emperor Bai smiled. The dark millstone stopped spinning and the great formation collapsed. Hence, the messages could go to and fro in the eternal chaotic world and Three Emperors' world without any hindrance. It was unnecessary to rely on Emperor Jiu Qiao's doppelganger to send a message anymore. It's really working as such? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes with a tinge of coldness. Jian Wushuang, your plan was wonderful. Not only did you escape from Three Emperors' world, you also verified something for Sanctuary Alliance. That is that our enemy's spy is among the higher-ups of Sanctuary Alliance, Emperor Bai said. However, although we know that there's a spy, it is hard to determine who the spy is exactly. Emperor Bai asked in a deep voice. Jian Wushuang, Abysmal Jiu Qiao, who do you think is suspicious? Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao exchanged a glance, then both shook their heads. There is a total of 13 great emperors. There are 14 including Jian Wushuang. Putting the 4 of us aside for now, there are 10 other great emperors and the spy is hidden among the 10 of them. As long as they didn't give themselves away, I don't think it'll be easy for us to determine, Abysmal Saint Master said. That's true. At least I won't be able to gauge who the spy is. As for a suspect, I don't have anyone in mind either, Emperor Jiu Qiao said. Needless to say, among the 14 great emperors, it was impossible for Jian Wushuang and Emperor Bai to be spies. Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao had known of the plan beforehand, while Three Emperors' world fell right into Jian Wushuang's trap. Hence, the 2 of them naturally weren't suspects. They could eliminate the 4 of them, but there were still 10 great emperors left. Among the 10 great emperors, Red Dragon, Tianchen Zisu colored glaze. I feel like none of them are. Abysmal Saint Master creased his eyebrows. He obviously couldn't think of anyone suspicious. But then Jian Wushuang was in deep thought. Suddenly he spoke, well, I suspect someone. Oh. The 3 of them immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. Great Emperor Zisu, Jian Wushuang said. Zisu. Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiu Qiao creased their eyebrows. Great Emperor Zisu was an extremely ancient great emperor in Sanctuary Alliance. He never questioned any worldly affairs. Plus, his temperament and reputation was good too. Could he be a spy? Jian Wushuang, tell us your reason, Emperor Bai said. I am not certain that Great Emperor Zisu is a spy, but I find him suspicious. I have 2 reasons. Firstly, real god Wu Bai's death. Jian Wushuang said. Wu Bai. They looked surprised at the answer. I know about real god Wu Bai. Although he is an inverse cultivator, his talent and comprehension level are ordinary, Abysmal Saint Master said. Yes, real god Wu Bai's talent and comprehension level are SOSO. However, due to the fact that he is an inverse cultivator, if he were to really step foot in the 7th step of inverse cultivation, he would also possess the fighting power of a great emperor. He would even stand a chance to become a top great emperors equal to you, Abysmal Saint Master, Jian Wushuang said. However, he only reached the 6th step before he died. The person who killed him was Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch, which is widely known. However, when my power reached a certain level and I went to kill Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch to take revenge on behalf of real god Wu Bai, Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch said that the reason he killed real god Wu Bai was that Great Emperor Zisu had commanded him to behind his back. Judging from the situation then, I don't think he was lying. The 3 of them were surprised to hear the story. Great Emperor Zisu had commanded Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch to kill real god Wu Bai. From what they knew, real god Wu Bai had never come across Great Emperor Zisu, let alone had dealings with him. On top of that, even if real god Wu Bai had really offended Great Emperor Zisu, he could totally have killed him directly. There was no need to go through the trouble of getting Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch to kill real god Wu Bai on his behalf. He had even told Demon Heart Kingdom monarch to be tight-lipped. There must be a reason behind it. Jian Wushuang, what you mean is that Great Emperor Zisu was worried that real God Wu Bei might step foot onto the 7th step of inverse cultivation and become one of the great emperor fighting powers of Sanctuary Alliance. Hence Zisu killed him in secret? Emperor Bai guessed. That is the only possibility, Jian Wushuang said. That's possible, Abysmal Saint Master suddenly said. Mr. Emperor Bai, Sword Emperor, speaking of Zisu, I do find him strange. Jian Wushuang and Emperor Bai looked at Abysmal Saint Master. Sword Emperor, you know this best. Back when you had yet to step foot in the 7th step of inverse cultivation, there were some great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance, including myself, that didn't wish to see you grow. I even found ways to kill you then. Abysmal Saint Master took a glance at Jian Wushuang solemnly. Chapter 2054 The Suspec. 2054 The Suspec. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and looked at Abysmal Saint Master strangely. He had shared resentment with Abysmal Saint Master before. Abysmal Saint Master had looked for an opportunity to kill him back then. However, after a trip to Three Emperors' World, their resentment had naturally been resolved. Now both parties held no grudges. They could even be considered great friends. Jian Wushuang understood Abysmal Saint Master. Although he was jealous, he wasn't one that acted hastily. Abysmal Saint Master paused and continued, I wanted to kill you, Sword Emperor. However, my intention was frank. All the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance knew that I didn't want to see you grow and be above me. I wasn't hiding anything. However, Zisu was different. Before the danger of eternal chaotic world was revealed, before I really took action against you, Zisu once revealed his intention to kill you when he was talking to me. In our conversation, now that I think back, there was a tinge of incitement in his speech. Incitement? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Great Emperor Shizu wanted to kill him and had incited Abysmal Saint Master to come after him? However, Great Emperor Zisu behaved rather gently and humbly when Head met Jian Wushuang. He didn't reveal anything different. Besides Abysmal Saint Master, the other great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance couldn't have known that Great Emperor Zisu had wanted to kill him. From what I know, Zisu is laid back and gentle. He never questions the affairs in Sanctuary Alliance. He almost never takes the initiative to offend anyone, but he killed real God Wu Bei in secret and wanted to kill you, Jian Wushuang. Forget about the fact that both real God Wu Bei and you were only real gods and had never once offended him. On top of that, both of you are inverse cultivators. Now that's interesting, Emperor Bai muttered and his voice was cold. Of course, with that alone we can't be certain that Zisu is a spy. It is most likely he isn't as broad-minded as we thought he was, Abysmal Saint Master said. That's true, Jian Wushuang nodded. However, I have another reason that led me to suspect him. Abysmal Saint Master, do you remember Great Emperor Colored Glaze invited you and Great Emperor Zisu to join forces to come to Green Fire World? Of course I do. I thought we were going to win for sure. We never thought that you would be so powerful and that you would have another mysterious expert who assisted you too, Abysmal Saint Master said. The mysterious expert is Lord Spirit Sound. We go way back, Jian Wushuang smiled. Back then Lord Spirit Sound suppressed Great Emperor Zisu. However, after the battle ended, she told me that Great Emperor Zisu had intentionally held his power back. What? Abysmal Saint Master looked in shock. Zisu has been hiding his power? Emperor Bai creased his eyebrows too. Jian Wushuang's eyes contained a chilly gleam. After Lord Spirit Sound fought with Great Emperor Zisu, she had told him to be careful of Great Emperor Zisu because she could tell that Great Emperor Zisu wasn't as simple as he looked. One should know that the power that Great Emperor Zisu had put on display had already gotten him the 5th place on Eternal Chaotic World's Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. He was already so powerful when he held back his power. Just how strong would he be if he were to put his full power on display? It seems that Great Emperor Zisu was really not as simple as we imagined him to be, Emperor Bai said in a low voice. Although he always saw Great Emperor Zisu, he had never fought with him. Hence, he couldn't tell if he was hiding his power. However, Lord Spirit Sound was an expert from ancient times and she was powerful. Plus, she had fought with Great Emperor Zisu head-on. She definitely wouldn't come to that conclusion out of nowhere. With the two reasons and what Abysmal Saint Master said earlier, I believe that Great Emperor Zisu is the biggest suspect, Jian Wushuang said. Of course he had only said suspect. He couldn't be sure. After all, he didn't have any evidence. As long as we have a suspect, we can slowly investigate. When we return to Sanctuary Alliance, I will investigate it personally, Emperor Bai said. Jian Wushuang and the other two great emperors nodded heavily. Oh yeah, one more thing. Jian Wushuang spoke again. Many years back, when I was still in the 6th step of inverse cultivation, I once went to Emperor Sword Sect when Lineage of Star was in a dangerous situation because of the news about Star Palace Master's passing. When I was on my way back, I came across a mysterious expert who tried to assassinate me. The mysterious expert was extremely strong. I believe he wasn't much weaker than Underworld God, who was in the first place among Emperor Gods. Plus, he had a move that exploded the fighting power of a great emperor. Back then it was a great threat to me. Even now, I don't know who the mysterious expert was, nor do I know who sent him. However, one thing I am sure about is that he absolutely wasn't an expert from Acheron Palace, because Acheron Palace once attempted to assassinate me and I knew their methods. If they wanted to assassinate me, they absolutely wouldn't only send him alone. They would plan meticulously. Emperor Bai heard and nodded faintly. The expert who tried to assassinate you, I will investigate him personally as well. Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace have been in the dark and eternal chaotic world for so many years. They finally took action and they are definitely well prepared. Over the years, they shouldn't have only placed 1 or 2 of their men in Sanctuary Alliance. As the Dark Millstone stopped, we of Sanctuary Alliance don't have to be in a hurry to fight them. During this time as we prepare for war, let's find out everything. Emperor Bai's eyes were gleaming. He was obviously angry. Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiao saw and nodded faintly. Sanctuary Alliance and Eternal Chaotic World had been at peace for too long. In peace there was definitely hidden decay. There were spies that the enemy had placed and it was time to root them out. As the 4 of them chatted, they returned to the buildings in the surrounding dark. Not long after the 4 of them returned, the great emperors that Emperor Bai commanded to get Jian Wushuang from Bronze Heart region returned too. These great emperors had gone and taken a trip to Bronze Heart region. However, they didn't see Jian Wushuang but had met some experts from 3 Emperors' world. Both parties had fought but it led to neither victory nor defeat. Emperor Bai had sent them a message and they'd left in time. On their way back, these great emperors were still confused as they had yet to find out the cause and effect. However, there was one person who understood. The person was naturally Great Emperor Zisu. He looked rather at ease but he was in distress. It seems that Emperor Bai has already realized that there is a spy among the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance, but I wonder if he will suspect me. Chapter 2055 70% winning chance. 2055 70% winning chance. After the great emperors returned to Sanctuary Alliance, they immediately received the news about Jian Wushuang's return. The great emperors were naturally surprised. Although some of them had noticed something fishy, they didn't say much. Then, Emperor Bai hosted a victory banquet at the surrounding of the Dark Millstone. The 4-member experts troop that was sent into 3 Emperors' world had destroyed the Emperor Supreme Rock and the Dark Millstone had stopped spinning. It could be described as destroying the sword above the head of countless cultivators in Eternal Chaotic World. With such a great contribution, they of course deserved a celebration. The banquet was extremely grand, and some Emperor gods participated too. During the banquet, many experts including those great emperors toasted Jian Wushuang. Even great Emperor Colored Glaze and Yen Zun, who had once held grudges against Jian Wushuang, were sincerely celebrating with him. As for Abysmal Saint Master and Emperor Jiao, they contributed a lot too. They were well respected. After some drinking, everyone, Emperor Bai suddenly stood up and looked at all the great emperors and emperor gods. The biggest hero who stopped the Dark Millstone is Jian Wushuang. Secondly, it was great Emperor Ji Luo who passed away. Then Abysmal and Jiao. Come everyone. Let's raise our glasses to the 4 of them. Everyone at the scene raised their glasses. Jian Wushuang stood up too. Then he said in a deep voice, to great Emperor Ji Luo, to Sanctuary Alliance, to Eternal Chaotic World. To great Emperor Ji Luo. To Sanctuary Alliance, to Eternal Chaotic World. All the experts repeated the words and drank the wine in their hands. After they drank the last glass of wine, Emperor Bai said, although the Dark Millstone has stopped, Eternal Chaotic World's danger has never been removed. Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace are still there, as well as the 3 Emperors' world with countless experts. As they have already exposed themselves, they will definitely fight Eternal Chaotic World until the very end. This war is inevitable. After today's banquet, everyone please get ready soon. The final war between Eternal Chaotic World and 3 Emperors' world will be here soon. Go ahead. Emperor Bai waved and everyone at the banquet was dismissed. After the banquet ended, various sects and experts continued to prepare. However, as the Dark Millstone had stopped, the preparation wasn't as pressing as before. On the other hand, Emperor Bai started investigating the matter about the double agent and Sanctuary Alliance. The person that he focused on in his investigation was Great Emperor Zissou. Of course, his investigation was done in secret. Besides the few of them, no one else had any idea. Three Emperors' World in the boundless dark void. Lung Rushue, Demon King Chenyu, and the blurry blood man known as Kaiser Blood, the three of them gathered again. Years of hard work. To prepare this dark millstone, all of us paid a great price and prepared for so many years. In the end, it was all destroyed in a day. Kaiser Blood's voice was cold with boundless anger. Demon King Chenyu was naturally furious too. That was normal. The dark millstone was what they had intentionally prepared to wipe out all experts in Eternal Chaotic World. It was absolutely their killer move. The moment they'd sent out their killer move, they could have made Eternal Chaotic World vanish without much effort. For that, they had paid too great of a price and put in too great of an effort. They'd taken years to prepare just for that one day. In the end, because of Jian Wushuang, their preparation had been in vain. Of course, they could only blame themselves for belittling their enemy. At first, they'd thought that the Emperor Supreme Rock was guarded by many great emperors in Imperial Peak and it would be perfectly safe. In addition, the Emperor Supreme Rock was sturdy itself. Without a certain level of power, it couldn't be cracked. Hence, they hadn't cared much about the four members experts troop to begin with. But they'd never expected that Jian Wushuang's power as an inverse cultivator could be so outrageous. After Head performed the secret skill of Star Palace, Head exploded a power that had exceeded the power of a great emperor and destroyed the Emperor's Supreme Rock. Hence, it had led to such an outcome. It's already happened. It's too late to regret it. I'd rather we first think about what we should do next. Lung Rushue, who had been sitting the whole time, suddenly spoke. What to do? What can we do? Demon King Chenyu roared and his eyes were simmering with anger. Even without the Dark Millstone, with the forces of Acheron Palace, Holocaust Sect and Three Emperors World combined, we can fight head-on with Eternal Chaotic World too. On top of that, Acheron Palace is already immersed in the forces in Eternal Chaotic World. Our chances of winning are at least over 70%. So, what are we afraid of? Let's fight head-on. Lung Rushue creased her eyebrows, then she looked to Kaiser Blood. Chenyu is right. Without the Dark Millstone, with the three of our forces combined, our winning chance is still extremely high. My only concern is that there will be more accidents and we will have to bear greater losses, Kaiser Blood said. Humph, as long as we can destroy Eternal Chaotic World, we will achieve our final goal. So what if we suffer greater losses? Demon King Chenyu humphed coldly. That's true, Kaiser Blood nodded. If so, let's get ready immediately. My Three Emperors World has conserved strength and built energy for so many years and they are so loyal to the Three Emperors. As soon as I send a command, the experts will immediately gather. On the other hand, the experts in Acheron Palace and Holocaust Sect, are they ready? Don't worry. The experts from my Acheron Palace are well prepared, Demon King Chenyu said. My Holocaust Sect is ready too, Lung Rushue said. If so, tell them to rush over at their fastest possible speeds in order to form into a huge military force with the expert in Three Emperors World. Then let's fight Eternal Chaotic World, Kaiser Blood said. All right, Demon King Chenyu and Lung Rushue nodded heavily. Oh yeah, Demon King Chenyu, Kaiser Blood suddenly turned to look at Demon King Chenyu. In Three Emperors World earlier you fought with Emperor Bai. The corner of Demon King Chenyu's lips twitched when he heard Emperor Bai's name, but he nodded. You look like Emperor Bai taught you a lesson, huh? Kaiser Blood sneered. Humph, Emperor Bai lives up to his name as the strongest man in Eternal Chaotic World. He is much stronger than me. No wonder Lord Fun was defeated. That's normal, Demon King Chenyu humphed. Then he lifted his head and said, Kaiser Blood, don't be too happy. Judging from Emperor Bai's power, I'm afraid he is stronger than you too. If you were to run into him, it might not end well. Oh? Wait and see. Kaiser Blood smiled maliciously and there was an eerie crimson light that surged in his empty eye sockets. The void went completely silent. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.